कहीं पर भी चांसेस है, होटल वालों को पूछा, सबने बंद कर दिया.
Yes, sir. Please mute yourself. The other members.
Request all the other participants to please mute.
Members, whenever we are doing bank branch audit, especially we are in a officer area, so जो भी bank branch audit हमें मिलेगा, definitely there will be large size of loan rated with your agriculture loan. And normally what happens with the agriculture loan, individually the agriculture loan amount is very small, maybe 2 lakh, 3 lakh, or definitely less than 5 lakh compared to other loans. And sometime, many of the time what happens, the loan is given maybe 4 years, 5 years, 6 years before. Maybe loan is given 2012, 13. And meanwhile, so many state associations are giving their representation and they are forcing the branches not to take action against the agriculturists. Don't force them to make the payment. And whenever we are about to make that loan as NPA, the bank is coming with the state circular and they're saying देखो ऐसा ऐसा circular आया and you cannot do this, please don't make this loan NPA. And they're regularly keeping the loan as a performing asset, though the loan is outstanding since last 6-7 years, which is likely to be NPA, but still it is shown as a performing asset. On that, bank is charging the interest, showing the profit. But truly speaking, somewhere we found that this loan should be NPA. But this happens that so many circulars are there, and in a very small period of time, we think it's okay, fine, the amount is very small, 2 lakh, 3 lakh is amount, it's okay. We are giving some benefit to agriculturists. So my request to today's learned speaker, Dilip Bhai, please highlight this issue, that how these loans to be classified as NPA, and in the changed circumstances of LFAR now, which is very stringent provisions are there. So with respect to how to give the note or remark in that LFR with respect to such loan, that is what we are expecting today's learned speaker, Dilip Sadbhai sir. So once again, I welcome to all of you. Thank you so much. Now I request, sir, Amravati branch से है sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes, Sunil sir. Sandeep bhai, Sunil sir.
Thank you, Sandeep. Hello. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, Sandeep sir, for your welcome remark. It's my privilege to introduce our Regional Council member and currently Vice Chairperson of WIRC, CA Drishti Desai Madam. I first of all recognize the presence of our guest of honor, Sri R.S. Mohekar sir, Chief Manager of SBI of Agricultural Development Branch. And I introducing Drishti Desai Madam. She qualified Chartered Accountant in 1997 with rank at all India level. She is a partner with Messrs. Bansi S. Mehta and Company. She is a Regional Council member of WIRC. She is member of the subgroup formed under the Valuation Standard Board for formation of valuation standard and actively contribute to the drafting of the standards. Her work profile includes a rich band of the experience in valuation and corporate restructuring with specialization in the area of the business valuation, valuation in intangibles, and advisory in the field of merger, acquisition, spin-offs, and restructuring and family settlements and due diligence, etc. She also consultant on financial and management advisor, individual and corporate tax advisor. Also, she also contribute to valuation of intangible assets, open offer, FEMA, royalty for inter-group transactions, and litigation reference of high courts, SEBI, etc. Independent directorship of listed company and many more. With this short introduction, I welcome Drishti Desai Madam for her opening remark. Welcome you, Madam.
Thank you, Sunilji, very much for your kind words, for this detailed introduction that you have given. I don't know if I'm worthy of so many words at such a wonderful panel that we have. And first of all, at this juncture, let me congratulate all the three branches and the managing teams and the chairman. So Amravati branch, Akola branch, Ahmednagar branch for their excellent effort and this wonderful seminar which has been put up. I think that's a need of the hour. So first of all, my congratulations on the excellent structure and the seminar which has been put up. Now, as you would have noted from the profile that I have, I am really into a different sector, of course, which is more into valuations. But I obviously keenly follow the news on the amendments, and so even when we look at the banking sector, we find that there is an extended role of a chartered accountant. There is higher responsibility which is fastened on to chartered accountants insofar as the the reporting is concerned, and of course then the onus lies on the auditor. So I think it's a very onerous job that we have here. So we chartered accountants do it wonderfully well. The second thing is that there are amendments in the LFIR which have come, which obviously make this even more onerous from last year. The third thing that we have is that there are so many like relaxations which the Reserve Bank came up with, in respect of various moratoriums given, classification is concerned. So there are, I think, for that purpose, we CAs have to really gear up insofar as our systems are concerned, so that we can then work around those requirements and on reporting in a much better way. Of course, the banks are definitely doing that, but our work is really to verify all those things also. So I think somewhere we have a bigger role now to play insofar as the relaxations are concerned, and we have to bring it in our take it in our stride and keep updating our processes to meet with the reporting requirement. That's a very important thing. And today's session, of course, is it's a very interesting session, I would say, and especially the sector. I would say, of course, it has a lot of NPA problems, as all the banking sector knows, and the auditors also know that NPA in this sector is quite high. But I think in today's day and age, we can say that even the large borrowers are also at a high risk of NPAs, and maybe we can see that there might be better conscience at a micro level borrower, and so rather than larger borrower. And this priority sector PSL lending is, I think, it's at the foundation of our economy and the policy. This is something which we have to focus on. The government will always have a focus on the priority sector lending, because that is what is actually getting the smaller guys, the agriculturists, the rural entrepreneurs out from the clutches of money lenders, because we know that money lending has been such a big issue in the rural areas. And because we don't have although we do have banking sector well spread even in the rural area, even then it is not sufficient. And because of that, we find that a lot of these entrepreneurs at rural area, they actually suffer in a very big way, because I don't think any of those money lenders follow the interest act, or the norms which they should actually be following, the statutes that we should be following. And so I think banking sector is the best way to really develop the Indian economy, and really banks are doing a fantastic job at that, and focusing on this priority sector. I think that's a wonderful thing that our Indian economy has. And of course, 50 or more than 50% of the people in India are at least in the rural area, are self-employed. So that's a huge thing, and that's where they need money, and banks are there to help. And now there are so many microfinance companies also which have come up, of course, but that is at a very high rate of borrowing. Whereas when we see banks, it's a very affordable borrowing, and I think that's it. I think I can add here at this platform. We have learned faculty here, Dilip sir, who will actually guide you through the audit of audit processes and the audit requirements and the key issues insofar as lending to this priority sector and the agriculture sector is concerned. So without wasting more time, I would like to hand over to the MOC for the session to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your kind words. Now I invite with us introduce Sri R.S. Mohekar sir, who is the Chief Manager of SBI Agricultural Development Branch, Amravati. He was with the SBI since 28 years. He is highly knowledgeable in agricultural advances as he practical deals with that, and he will share his experience with us about technical difficulties faced in agricultural advances. I would like to thank Mohekar sir for accepting our invitation at very short notice. Now I welcome sir to you. Over to you, sir. Sir, please unmute yourself. Sir, yes.
Are you audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes,
sir. Myself, Rajendra Mohekar, Chief Manager, ADB Amravati. Thank you for giving me such in your program. So first of all, I would like to inform you that in our bank, in State Bank of India, banks are going forward to boost the agri segment. Especially State Bank of India is among one of the public sector bank who is created his different vertical. All the banks, nationalized banks, they have not created their verticals apart from State Bank of India to boost the agriculture sector, as known as FIMM. From last year, it is started. Now, it is NHB, NABARD, different government departments are allocating the subsidy on different projects to boost the agricultural segment and boosting their livelihood, farmers and landless laborers. Now, what happened, sir? Last year budget, government has announced for the hefty budget allocation to agri sector. That sector means 2.83 lakh crores allocated for agri sector, allied activities, irrigation and rural development, which is 30% higher than previous year estimated. Up till now, it is not there. Government's flagship scheme, PM Kisan, 75,000 crore, all eligible beneficiaries to be covered under KCC scheme. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is tuned to be 15,695 crores. 2,000 crores has been allocated under price stabilization schemes. 600 crores for promotion to farm mechanization. 5,000 crores under PM Asha schemes. 5,000 crores for setting up 10,000 FPOs. 220 crores for PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, which is giving to all the Kisans 2,000 per month. Strengthening the PM Kusum, the proposed for earning by farmers for solar energies. Allocation for animal husbandry, livelihood, dairy and fisheries to the tune of 4,114 crores. There are some thrust area which has been SBI has focused. SBI focused thrust areas in agricultural lending, mainly shift focus from traditional loan products to risk mitigated products like multi-purpose gold loans, asset-backed agriculture gold loan, asset-backed agriculture loan, produce marketing loans, and new tractor loans with tie-up arrangements. Increase the portfolio mix with high yield and risk mitigated products. Aim to extend more products to a single customer to bring down the operational cost. Thrust on new products designed to improve the business like Mudra, dairy, all these things, etc. Capture emerging business opportunities while by leveraging new business mode like FPO financing, contract farming, new corporate tie-ups, value chain financing, and cluster financing in horticulture crops. As earlier said by Madam, that bankers are more focusing on priority sector, agri sector, and through money lenders, the rural economy is going down. So in priority sector lending, bank is trying for the include some things. They are agriculture, micro, small, medium enterprises, education, housing, social infrastructure, renewable energy, export credit, and others. These are the main sources from these are included in the priority sector. In rural business, there are some challenges we are facing. Providing financial service in rural areas is a challenge to everyone, as agriculture and other rural economic activities have unique characters of dependence on natural resources. Without natural resources, they cannot do anything. For that purpose, there are some broad guidelines are given by our institution, which can be resumed under a broad 7-piece framework. First one is product strategy. Second, process. Third one, partnership. Fifth one, protection, profitability, productivity, and peoples. These are the main broad criteria under 7-piece framework have been allocated. And moreover, I want to share with you, sir, the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare, formally it is known as Ministry of Agriculture, is the apex body for formation and administration of the rules and regulation and laws related to agriculture of India. The 3 boards area to scope the ministry are agriculture, food processing, and cooperations. They have given some guidelines to the banks for doing the livelihood, enhance the livelihoods and all these things. In this context, Niti Aayog also comes together with the government of India, and they set up some development institutions, important institution players. They are giving the subsidy to the farmers and all these needy persons. They are Panchayat Raj, Gram Panchayat, Panchayat Samiti, and Jilla Parishad. Second one is NABARD, Rural Self-Employment, RCT Training Institutes, District Rural Development Agency, DRDA, Khadi and Village Industry Commissions, KVICs, District Industry Center, DICs. From all these institutions, they are providing some finance and subsidy towards the subsidy to the customers. In line with that, Master Government has specifically declared some areas in rural villages under POKRA. Under POKRA, some subsidy is giving to the farmers and kisans. Apart from this, bank is now come with the scheme finance for purchase of agriculture land up to 5 lakhs. Those are who are the needy persons. In such cases, somewhere what happens, some kisan or farmers, they are not aware with the social security scheme. For that purpose, bank has come with the social security purpose. Government is having social security scheme to boost any unwarranted mishappening in the family, like as Atal Pension Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Jivan Jyoti Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana, Suraksha Samruddhi Yojana. These are the schemes to enlighten the rural people from their any mishappenings. Now, as a chartered accountant audit team, while scrutinizing the proposals of agriculture segment, they should mainly focusing to the increase the income by doing different type of agribusiness. Thank you, Agrawal sir, for giving me the opportunity to give some words, and all dignitaries for calling me to share my views. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mohekar sir, for enlightening on various schemes of the agri sectors. On behalf of all the 3 branches, I thanks once again, sir, and also thanks our RCM CA Drishti Desai madam for their opening remarks. Now, it's time to listen to our speaker. Now, I request CA Pawan Jaju sir, Vice Chairman of Amravati branch, to kindly give the brief of our dynamic speaker, CA Dilip Sath Bhai from Pune. Over to Pawan sir.
Thanks, Chairman sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
It's my privilege to introduce Dilip Sath Bhai sir. Dr. Dilip V. Sath Bhai sir is the senior partner of Messrs. D.V. Sath Bhai and Company, Chartered Accountants, having registered office at Pune. He is the senior partner of the firm and was the chairman, vice chairman, secretary of Pune branch. He was also co-opted member on various committees of Central and Western India General Council. He was the faculty member to deliver lectures on GST on all India basis under FIP program. He was a member of Internal Audit Standard Board of the Institute. He was also appointed as a member of a study group for the government, accounting and financial planning for local bodies in India. He was a member of Finance Committee of the Maratha Chamber of Commerce and Industries. He has written several articles on matters of interest on direct and indirect tax laws, economics, commerce and other laws. He holds master's degree in law, which he had passed out by ranking first in the order of merit in University of Pune. He has successfully completed PhD degree in law in a subject titled Freedom of Speech and Expression and Media Trial, a case for judicial activism. He was also in the merit list in the both intermediate and final examinations of ICAI. He was the winner of the National Merit Scholarship for 7 years. He has won prestigious Ghamandi Prize for acquiring the knowledge in the field of law. He is the winner of special prize from Nehru Memorial Fund, New Delhi for professional excellence. He has been considered as a sound investment consultant in Maharashtra. He has masterminded almost all laws, as he was visiting part-time faculty member and head of the department for auditing and taxation department for well over more than 25 years with BMCC and ILS Law College in Pune. He has delivered many lectures and presented many papers in a seminar and conference on state and national level, and also delivered talks on All India Radio. He has a rich experience of performing information system audit, as he is a good computer programmer, and SSI has awarded him a certificate of excellence and was declared successful in DISA by ICAI. He has also cleared another post-qualification course in risk management, DIRM. He was the first chartered accountant to acquire such knowledge and qualification. He has also completed all the certificate courses of ICAI, like international taxation, forex, treasury, forensic audit, concurrent audit, indirect taxes, etc., which are conducted by ICAI. He is the treasurer of International Leprosy Union and Allied Health Alliance, and also treasurer of CASP. He is the founder and lifetime chairman of Usha Lele Charitable Trust and also PD Lele Pratishthan, Pune and Mumbai. He is also the trustee of Kalavardhani Trust, formed by Doctors Sujata Bhede for development of young talent in the field of Bharatnatyam classical dance. So this is such a wonderful introduction of Dilip Sath Bhai sir. With this, I, on behalf of all the 3 branches, welcome Dilip Sath Bhai sir. Over to Dilip sir. Thank you. Sunil sir.
Yes, sir. Dilip sir.
Unmute करना पड़ेगा दिलीप सर.
Sir, unmute yourself. दिलीप सर.
इनके 2 है इसमें प्रोफाइल.
हाँ, एक सर ने लैपटॉप से और
अच्छा ठीक है.
सर ने आ गया.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Should I start now or somebody?
No. Start sir. Continue.
सर एक सेशन एक लैपटॉप या फिर मोबाइल कहीं एक जगह पे म्यूट करना पड़ेगा.
नहीं, एक जगह म्यूट है सर, एक ही जगह चालू है. अच्छा, सर ने दोनों जगह. सर आप
One is muted. Good evening, friends. It is indeed a pleasure for me to interact with all of you on this prestigious event organized by Akola branch jointly with Amravati and Ahmednagar branch. Initially, I must thank the charismatic chairman of the Akola branch for having invited me, Mr. Kedia, for inviting me to this particular session in itself. I must thank all other two chairmen also, Sunil Agrawal and Desarda sir also. I am also thankful to the secretary, Sri Vipul Patel. So I'm grateful to all of you for giving me an invitation and to be over here on this virtual mode. In the next now, another 1.5 hours time, we will be having a general knowledge about the agriculture advances as well as other priority sector advances. And we will come to know at the end of the lecture that what is the major issue that we need to look into so far as the audit of agriculture advances, including that of priority sector advances are concerned. My theme is very simple. I will be giving you a conceptual knowledge initially, and then we will be talking about the applicational knowledge of the subject in itself. So conceptual and applicational is nothing new for all of you. It is just like a case of driving of a car in itself. That only simply saying that I am having a clutch, the brake and other thing, that will not solve the purpose, because you will have to specify the exact nature of the clutch, exact nature of the accelerator, exact nature of the gear in itself, top gear, middle gear, lower gear, as the case may be. But only having that much conceptual knowledge is not enough. In order to ensure that applicational knowledge is also with you, you need to have the applicational aspect by showing that exactly how to drive the car in itself. So on the same lines now, this audit of agricultural advances and other priority sector advances is required to be looked into or is required to be seen. Now coming back to our main topic now today, that is the priority sector advances in itself. So you will ask me a query first, what do you mean by the term priority sector? Now take a normal case of your family wherein you will find that there are 4 children in the family, 3 are exceptionally brilliant and talented, whereas 1 is not. What will be the responsibility of the parents in that particular case? The parents will be concentrating more on the 4th child, which is not up to the standard in itself as compared to 3 children are concerned. So the parents' priority will be to nourish the 4th child in itself. Keeping that particular track in mind, now the major thing that in case of advances which is required to be seen, of the total advances, there has to be some preferences to be given, and that has to be based on some masses. You might be knowing in India, there were about 70% of the population which was dependent on the agriculture sector in itself. And later on, in the last 10, 15 years of time, the total percentage has come down from 70% to 60%. All the 60% are not cultivating the land, but the 60% comprises of the persons who are farmers who are directly cultivating, and those persons who are dependent on the manufacturing or the processing of the agriculture sector is concerned. So those who are directly involved and ultimately incidentally involved are covered in the agriculture sector. So as a result of which, 60% of the population of our country is dependent on agriculture sector. So the government thought rightly that this is the area which needs to be nourished and needs to be given more priority. And that is the reason why the first item of advance that has been included in the priority sector advances is advances on the basis of agriculture nature. So agricultural advances thus become the part and parcel of this particular category in itself. Now this agriculture sector is divided into 2 parts. One is the urban sector and the second is the rural sector. In priority, normally we feel that the focus is being given on rural development by the government of India in itself. So as a result of which, rural development has become the item of national priority for the government of India in itself. The growth of poor section is the major growth that ultimately will lead to the growth of economy, is the feeling of the central government in itself. And for that reason, synchronizing the bank lending to the farmers in itself becomes the priority category in itself. So as a result of which now, the main objective of this priority sector lending is nothing mere but to ensure that the adequate land flow, adequate fund flows ultimately to the vulnerable sectors of the economy in itself. And it is possible that the lending may not be fetching good amount of profit to the banking institution, but ultimately in the interest of the nation, that has been considered very important. Now, in this particular arena now, in the current year as compared to last year, some changes have been made. And what are those important changes? We will be highlighting in the next 1 or 2 minutes of time. Hardly 5-10 minutes will be required for covering this entire plain topic. The first part that what you need to understand about the priority sector lending will be, of the total advances which are there, 40% will be considered as a priority sector advances for nationalized bank, and 10% will be required for the other equivalent category in itself. So major thing that what we need to understand is agriculture sector or priority sector, not agriculture sector, only priority sector covers up 40% of the total advances. Now the second change that has been made here is that agriculture distinction, which was there in between direct and indirect agriculture, that has been dispensed with now in the current year, which is no more there in operation in the next year. Then food and agro processing units, which were not part and parcel of agriculture until last year, now those will become part and parcel of agriculture in itself. Then the medium enterprises, the social infrastructure, and the renewable energy now also will form part of the priority sector in itself. A target of 7.5% has been given for the micro enterprises in the current year. There was a difference in between education loan, those have been given to the students undergoing learning in India or outside India. Now that difference has been done away with. Now both the education now are under the par in itself. The microcredit category that was given a separate category under the priority sector now has been dispensed with. Now, one more point which we need to understand is loan limits for housing loans have been revised in the current year. We will see in detail at a later point of time. And priority sector assessment now will be monitored through quarterly and annual statements. So these are the major changes which have been made, and we need to look into these particular aspects in general. Now, there are as many as 8 factors or 8 sectors which we need to learn so far as priority sector lending is concerned. The first one, which we have already seen, that is the agriculture. Details we'll see at a later point of time. So agriculture becomes part and parcel of priority sector. Second is micro, small, and medium enterprises. A new definition has been introduced from 1st of July 2020. We will have to learn that, and we will have to adhere to that particular definition now. Third is the export credit, which is the third part of the priority sector. Education is the fourth one. Affordable housing is the fifth one. Social infrastructure is the sixth. Renewable energy is the next. And other category, miscellaneous category, is the eighth category. Now let us go into details and try to find out through a table that what are the important things which we need to learn. Now, of the 40% of the priority sector lending that the concerned bank has to achieve at the year end, 18% must go to the agriculture sector. That is what the precise point which we need to learn. And the second part, that in case of RRBs, that is regional rural banks and small finance banks, the target that has been given for priority sector is 75%. So keep it in mind that in case of nationalized banks, the target is only 40%, whereas in case of RRBs and the small finance banks, the target prescribed is 75%. If you are conducting an audit of UCB, a phase-wise enhancement has been made. Existing target for priority sector is 40%. By the end of 2021, 31st March, it will be raised to 45%, then 22, 50%, 23, 60%, and by the end of 2024, the target that has to be reached into is 75%. So keep this particular point in mind, and the next table, which I'm just bringing it to your notice, will summarize the entire data together in itself. Second column talks about the nationalized banks, and the second is RRBs and microfinance. The total priority sector is 40% in general. For RRBs and microfinance, it is 75%. The agriculture sector is 18%, but note one point, that out of these 18%, 10% must go to the micro and small farmers, whereas 18% is there and 10% is similar version is there for RRBs and microfinance banking institutions are concerned. Then total micro enterprises, the percentage is 8% in both the cases, whereas advances to weaker section for nationalized banks, it is 10%, whereas RRBs, it is 15%. For the microfinance banks in itself, it is 12%. So this is in brief that what we need to understand. Now the conceptual knowledge of agriculture. Agriculture is divided into three parts. The first is farm credit, second is agriculture infrastructure, and the third is ancillary activities in itself. So agriculture loan may comprise of these three categories in itself. So what are these farm credits? What are these agriculture infrastructure? And what are these ancillary activities? We will have to see in brief so that we will be in a position to understand what ultimately we will have to look into. Now the farm credit is nothing more but the loans which have been given to the individual farmers. Now individual farmers includes self-help group, which we see nowadays in Maharashtra, even the joint liability groups in itself, or the proprietary concerns of the farmers in itself. And in allied activities, you will find that the businesses like that of dairy, fishery, animal husbandry, poultry, beekeeping, that is honey beekeeping, and sericulture in itself. This sericulture word might be new to you, so I will explain this in a little bit detail for a minute or so. You might be knowing the silkworm and the silk manufacturing activity. Now, silkworms are planted on the mulberry leaves in itself. These mulberry leaves are eaten it out by the silkworms, and they go healthier and healthier day by day. Once they become of adult age, they are being called as cocoons. And these cocoons, when they are ultimately grown up to their size, then they are thrown into the boiled water, and then the silk comes out of them in itself. So this is the activity, this is the process which is being considered as a sericulture. An activity of sericulture is an agriculture activity within the meaning of this particular definition. Now, what do you mean by the term farm credit? Now, farm credit comprises of 5 types of crop loans. The crop loans which have been given to the farmers could be traditional, could be non-traditional, could be plantations, could be horticulture, or it could be for loans for allied activities in itself. Now, what are these crop loans? These crop loans may be of 5 categories. One is known as a food crop. What are these food crops meant about? It can be wheat, it can be maize, it can be rice, it can be millets, it can be pulses, etc. So, if you have these particular food crops, those will be covered under the farm credit category in itself. Second is known as cash crop. These cash crops are, these may include sugarcane, tobacco, then cotton, jute, and oilseeds, etc. So these are the categories of cash crops that you may come across.
Excuse me, sir.
The third is plantation crop. In plantation crop, you will find that coffee is there, coconut is there, tea is there, rubber is there, etc., etc. In horticulture, you will find that all kinds of vegetables and fruits will be included. And last one is the dried crops in itself, wherein you will find that watermelon, muskmelon, cucumber, bitter gourd, fodder crops, etc. So in short, I am giving a general list. It may include some other crops as well. But in order to understand that which crop is to be called as cash crop or which crop is to be called as food crop, this illustrative list has been given to you in itself. This comprises of the farm credit so far as the crops are being concerned. These are traditional crops. Now you will ask me a query that as to how many crops are there. There are n number of crops. but the costliest crop that I have seen in the entire country is the crop of saffron, which is having a value of $5,000 per kg, which is equivalent to 3,75,000 rupees per kg. So that is the costliest crop in the country in itself. So these are traditional crops. Now you will ask me a query that which are non-traditional crops? Non-traditional crops are normally those who are having a very less acreage, which means which fetches less returns in itself, but they are equally important for conducting a business of their own. So for example, ethnic fruits are there, or medicinal plants are being there, where you will find that these particular plants or these bushes are useful for Ayurveda Acharya or Ayurvedic activity in itself. So these type of medicinal plants, they are being used. Sunflower also will fall in this particular non-traditional category in itself. Fiber hemp or the activities or the plants which are used for industrial purposes also will fall in this particular category. So this is being known as a farm credit, which is known as a crop credit. Crop is divided into two parts, traditional and non-traditional. Now, the second part that we need to cover up after farm credit is the medium and long-term loans to the farmers. It is meant for agriculture and allied activities. Now, what are farm activities? You might be requiring a tractor. You might be requiring some agricultural implements like plow. You might be requiring some machinery like a electric pump set or a motor, as the case may be. You might be requiring a loan for irrigation purposes. So all these loans cannot be repaid within a day's time or within 2 days' time. As a result of which, these are being considered as either medium-term loan or long-term loans in itself. So these are term loans which we need to identify. There are other loans for allied activities also. You will ask me a query that what are these allied activities as such? Now, there can be some sort of a harvesting activity pre and post of the crop in itself. It can include the pesticide, insecticide, using fertilizers, manures, etc., which comprises of spraying, weeding, harvesting, transporting their product of their own farm to the market in itself. So this will cover under the third category in itself. So this is also part and parcel of agriculture and welfare. First one, farm credit, second one, loans, and the third one, which we have seen, any activity pre and post of the crop in itself, that will be covered under agriculture advanced category in itself. Then the fourth one, which in
Sir,
please unmute yourself.
Sir, unmute yourself.
Please unmute yourself.
Sir, Andra. Sir, also enlarge the screen.
Sir, unmute yourself. No, sir, please unmute. Yeah.
Am I audible now?
No, now you're audible, sir.
Sir, enlarge your screen.
So the point which we need to understand and we need to analyze is the loans those have been given to the distressed farmers who are indebted to the non-institutional lenders.
Please enlarge the screen, sir. Sir, please enlarge the screen. Sir, उसको slide में कीजिए ना जाके.
So F5 button F5 will work.
Can you hear me now?
Sir, down में है sir percentage. वहाँ पे sir arrow है.
What I am supposed to do now?
Move the arrow to your right. Sir, down
to do now?
At downside, sir.
बटन
F5 now?
F5 कर दीजिए सर, आपका प्रेजेंटेशन स्टार्ट हो जाएगा.
सर शॉर्टकट की F5.
सर नीचे में एरो है सर. सर एट द बॉटम.
In the phone or in the laptop?
Sir, laptop in which the presentation is going on.
In case of presentation. This is the presentation now. What you want me to do now? There are mute, then start video, then security, participants, new share, remote control. That's all. Chat. Tell me what should I do now?
Sir, please press the button F5 on your keyboard. Okay, sir.
Sir, just a minute. On, sir.
Yes, sir.
You have first PPT?
No, I don't have, sir, a PPT of.
Just I'm sending you.
You are sharing the slide, or should I share the slide?
Sir, I want, sir.
सुनील भाई क्या प्रॉब्लम हो गई?
डाउनलोड नहीं हो रहा.
ओके, एक काम करो ना सुनील भाई
हाँ.
सर को बोलना पीपीटी शेयर कर दो, अभी जस्ट डिलीवर करो लेक्चर बोलना.
एक मिनट.
Can you see now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see now?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So should I proceed?
Yes, sir. Please.
There is a caption that please move this window away from the shared screen application. Should I continue there then? Are you able to see this slide?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now we can see. Sir, you can start now.
Okay. So let us move on to after the small break and let us start with the activity again. I have already told you that loans to distressed farmers indebted to the non-institutional lenders will also fall in this agriculture sector.
इसका
श्रीराम फाइनेंस वाले ट्रक वाले मंगा था.
I'm not able to hear. Should I continue?
Yes, yes.
So please continue.
Okay. Now coming to the next part, we have seen in Maharashtra that there are so many farmers who are committing suicide, and in order to overcome that particular difficulty that they should not commit suicide, this particular clause has been inserted in the priority sector lending advances, where the loans given to distressed farmers who are indebted to the non-institutional lenders will be covered under agriculture advances category. Then the loans, which is the famous thing that we have been seeing nowadays, that the loans given to the farmers under Kisan Credit Card Scheme will come under agriculture sector category. Then the loans given to small and marginal farmers also will fall in this particular category. I may brief you that the small farmer and marginal farmer definition are very simple. A person or a farmer having a agriculture land to the extent of 1 hectare will be called as a marginal farmer, and that particular farmer who is holding land from 1 acre to 2 acre, 1 hectare to 2 hectare will be called as a small farmer. So marginal farmer and small farmer, these are the 2 points which we need to look into. Then coming to the other aspect, solar agricultural pumps, loans given to that will fall in this category, and the loans which are being given for installation of solar power plants also will come under this particular category. Infrastructure, I have already covered in brief manner, so I will not much discuss on this particular topic. I have already told you just now that who are the small and marginal farmers. Farmers with land holding up to 1 hectare are marginal farmers, and from 1 to 2 hectare are being called as a small farmers in itself. Then the landless agricultural laborers also can be given agricultural advances in itself. Tenant farmers who are not owning the land still can be given agricultural advances in itself. Those farmers who are oral lessees also can be given agricultural advances. And those who are known as sharecroppers also will be given agricultural advances. Sharecroppers are nothing mere but it is an arrangement made in between the farmer and the tenant on a condition that as soon as the cultivation takes place, the rent will be given in the form of the food or crop that will be grown up. A certain percentage of share will be shared is the sharecropping pattern which we need to learn. Then the self-help group is covered under this category. And the last one which we need to find out is the allied activities in itself. In allied activities, any loan can be given for purchase of animals or cattle as the case may be. So one thing that we need to understand here, that the last category of 2 lakhs of worth of loan is available to each and every person so far as the farmer is being concerned. Now from here onwards now, we will be having a practical approach. This was the conceptual matter which we have seen, which only talks about the general philosophy, the general knowledge about the agricultural advances is being concerned. Now, coming to the current year's statutory audit of bank branches are concerned, you perhaps might be knowing that on 3rd of September 2020, the Supreme Court of India has given a verdict in Gajendra Singh Sharma versus Union of India that after 31st of August 2020, no account can be declared as non-performing asset. Even as of today, that rule continues. Today only the Supreme Court has given one more judgment about the moratorium that was being given. And in that moratorium now they have talked about that the decision of the central government to discriminate the borrowers in between those persons who are drawing less than 2 crore and more than 2 crore is ultra-virus, and as a result of which all the persons, whether they are having loans liability to the extent of less than or more than 2 crore, are eligible for claiming waiver of interest on interest during the moratorium period of 1st of March 2020 to 31st of August 2020. So if the provision has not been made by the concerned branch till 31st of March 2021, we have to ensure that that amount of interest is being refunded by the concerned bank is the major issue that we will have to look into so far as the present or today's Supreme Court's decision is being concerned. Note one more point that Supreme Court has held again, that the request that was being made by Mr. Gajendra Singh Sharma to waiver of entire interest from 1st of March to 31st of August in itself has been turned down by the Supreme Court of India. They had sought another 6 months moratorium period for another 6 months of time from 31st of August. That has also been turned down by the Supreme Court of India in itself. So keep this particular point in mind so far as the decision that has been given in Gajendra Singh Sharma versus Union of India is being concerned. In the light of that now, we need to look into this particular aspect and find out that what is required to be done so far as this Supreme Court decision is being concerned. Now, there are ramifications on the entire provision that we will be making. And for that reason, we will have to look into the long form audit report where we are supposed to look into the matter, and we have to specify.
Sir, mute हो गए आप.
10% of the offences so far as the matter of law is being concerned. In the light of that now, the thing that we need to look into so far as the Supreme Court's intervention is being concerned, Supreme Court has now finally laid down the decision today, and that decision says that interest on compounding basis is not being allowed, and as a result of which, if the concerned person have charged interest on the basis of interest has been charged on the basis of the compounding interest, that will have to be refunded. So in case some persons have made advance payment and then hence they are not in a position to claim this particular refund, that those persons also will be considered as eligible to receive this particular amount in itself, is the precise decision that we will have to look into so far as the generality of the matter is being concerned. Keep this particular point in mind so far as the Supreme Court decision is being concerned. Now, so far as the non-performing assets are being concerned, the decision number I have already pointed out to you that the Honorable Supreme Court, the case number is 825/2020, that has been specified in the matter in itself. And the disclosure now, what we need to make here is about the non-performing assets in itself. Now you are aware that Supreme Court has laid down, which the decision has not been reversed till today. That decision says that in future, that is after 31st of August 2020, no account can be declared as a non-performing asset. As a result of which now, even though the account has become non-performing, we are not in a position to claim that particular, consider that particular account as a non-performing asset. But we will have to make one note in itself, a qualification in itself, that after 31st of August, so many accounts have become non-performing. However, these are not being declared to be so because of the court order of Supreme Court dated 3rd of September 2020. So this qualification will be required. It is mandatory now so far as LFAR as well as the main audit report is being concerned. So keep this particular point in mind. So I am talking about two important features. The first one which we have talked about, the non-performing assets, which are not to be declared under the order which has been issued by the Supreme Court of India. But take a scenario wherein you will find that certain accounts were required to be declared as non-performing, but because of the mistake of the branch manager or because of any other matter, the account was not declared as non-performing asset. So for example, one account has become on 20th of June 2020 as non-performing, but that has not been considered as non-performing by the branch manager. Whether this rule will apply to them, and the answer to the question will be that Supreme Court says after 31st of August, no account can be declared as non-performing. But this is the account which has been declared as performing up till the 19th of June, and on 20th of June it has become the non-performing. So this is a serious grave error that we will have to look into on these particular matters. But since this account, even though it has become non-performing, after 31st of August, we cannot declare this particular account as non-performing. So all those accounts in the current year now we can say, even though they have been declared to be non-performing and technically they are non-performing, we are supposed to report only that matter. We cannot ask the concerned branch manager to declare that particular item or that particular account as non-performing asset in itself. So that is the feature that what you need to learn, that what you need to understand so far as IRAC norms are being concerned. Coming to the next slide now, that is the restructuring of loans are being concerned. In the current year now, there are two important situations those have crept up. And those two important situations are, one is the corona pandemic, COVID-19 in itself, whereby virtue of which certain loans have become non-performing in itself. Now, all the banks have given the rights to the concerned manager to restructure the loans in itself. And if these loans are restructured during the current year 2021, then these are to be called as performing assets or performing loans is the precise issue that what we will have to look into. Then the second is the corona matter pandemic in itself, by virtue of certain loans were being given. Even in these cases, even the documents are not being ready. Documents are not being prepared. As a result of which now, the question that we need to look into here would be that under COVID-19 category, since the guarantee has been given by the central government, the loans are being considered to be the performing one, even though there are chances and you feel that this person is not likely to repay the loans in itself. But keep it in mind, COVID-19 loans are being considered as performing assets so far as the technicalities are being concerned. Coming to the next slide, so far as COVID-19 regulatory package is concerned, I have given you the entire number in the next two slides in itself. Coming to the next slide now, these are again the same thing. Then the resolution framework also has been specified in the next slide. Next slide, please. Keep this particular red words in mind in itself, that government guaranteed advances are always to be considered as performing assets. Keep this particular point in mind. Whether agriculture or otherwise, all priority sector advances which have been guaranteed by the government of India or state government are to be considered as performing assets in itself. Only when the accounts have become overdue and the central government has repudiated the guarantee in itself, only in those cases the non-performing assets will be treated. Otherwise, these all are performing assets so far as the technicalities are concerned. Next slide, please. Now, how to verify these particular assets is $1 million question that you will have to look into. I would suggest to use the artificial intelligence so far as the technicalities are being concerned, because it is very difficult to find out when the loan has been given for infrastructure or for crop loans in itself. How to find out whether the crop is of the same category or not. How to find out that whether the land belongs to the concerned person whose name is being incorporated as a borrower in itself. So here you can use the Google navigation plan in itself, whereby virtue of which by giving the survey number, you can reach the destination in itself. But again, this will be a problem when connectivity is a problem in that particular village in itself. So in that case, how to do that will be again big question that you will have to look into. One of the agriculture officer with whom I interacted in the past in itself, some 25 years back, he suggested me one formula, and that formula I have been using every now and then. When the concerned person, I told the concerned officer, agriculture officer, that this is the land of Mr. One Shinde. How can I determine that this land belongs to Mr. Shinde? Then he said that I have no clue, I have no documentary evidence other than 7/12 extract. But how to show that this particular land belongs to Shinde is a very difficult matter in itself. So I asked him, then how you verify the land in itself? Then he said that when we go to the concerned land and to the borrower in itself, we simply say two words. Is it the land of Mr. Joshi? Then all of a sudden, since the question is difficult, he immediately answers, no, it is not Joshi. It is of Mr. Shinde or Gorba Shinde, as the case may be. And that is how you have to identify the owner of the land so far as the feature when you are not in a position to identify the location as well as the owner of the land is being concerned. Documentary evidence we are going to see at a little bit later after 2-3 slides are concerned. But here, the physical verification, to my mind, will be of utmost importance, and at least in big size borrowers in itself, the auditor is expected to visit and ensure that this particular expenditure or the loan that has been granted has been used for the logical conclusion for which ultimately it was granted in itself. Then you have to see the verification of history of the borrower and guarantors, that whether these are genuine or not. Sometimes you see that in old loans in itself, the borrowers are dead or the guarantors are dead and the loans are being continued for years together in itself. Then 7/12 extract, we will see more details on this particular account. 8A extract, we will see at a bit later stage. Then the inspection report is very much important. Inspection report normally comprises of the visit of the agriculture officer to the concerned borrower. If the borrower is missing, he is expected to write in the inspection report. If the crop is not there, the inspector is expected to jot down on the inspection report that crop is not there, or the crop has been sold out, the borrower is running away, guarantor is dead. Something of that sort is expected to be jotted down by the agriculture officer in his inspection report. So inspection report must be read by all the auditors in order to ensure that whether the security is enforced or not in itself. Then, while sanctioning letter which is being seen, compliance to the terms and sanctions are required to be adhered to. Then we have to see the operation of account with special reference to payment and receipts. Once these are being carried out, initial work of looking at the account itself will be said to be over in itself. Next. Now, I am going to the root of the documentation, wherein we are going to see the 7/12 extract, which is the prima facie or conclusive record to find out that the loan to whom it has been given is really the owner of the property in itself. So this 7/12 extract comprises of a big book where the left-hand side comprises of 7 columns and the right-hand side comprises of 12 columns. And the extract of these 2 pages is being called as 7/12 extract in itself. So Form 7, it talks about the entire details of the owner in itself and the rights of the owner in itself. Whereas Form 12, which record the agricultural aspects of the land, whether it is bagaiti, jiraiti, which type of crop is being procured into, etc., etc. Next slide. Then the record of land rights, what is this 7/12 extract means? The 12 extract talks about land rights. It is a record of various rights which have been there in the land in itself, looking up to the ownership, ancestralship of the land in itself. And it also talks about whether there are any disputes about the land and any litigation orders are passed against the land in itself. So this is a clear-cut concrete proof of showing that what is going wrong or right with the land in itself. Who is the owner? Ultimately, whether the land belongs to him, whether there are any disputes about the land, there are any litigation is going on the land, what kind of crops are being grown into, and many other details which we are going to see in the next slide in itself. Next slide, please. Now, whenever you are dealing with 7/12 extract, it talks about a particular land or a gut number or a hissa number. But 8A extract talks about the various lands belonging to the concerned borrower in that particular local town. For example, I might be having 3 small pieces of agriculture land in village Ahmednagar in itself. So 3 different lands are being there. One is a half acre, the other is 1 acre, and the third is 1.5 acre at 3 different locations in Ahmednagar Taluka in itself. Now, these 3 different locations will be having 3 different 7/12 extracts. And nobody will know that how much land I belong and how much land is owned by me. But 8A extract is the extract which covers up all the 3 lands together, or as many lands I own in Ahmednagar Taluka, and it will be a concise, comprehensive list of all 7/12 extracts that will be incorporated in 8A. So 7/12 extract, a localized concerned document about a particular land. And when all these lands are being put together and they are combined it together, 8A document will comprise of these particular lands. So this is the special feature that what we need to learn into. Now the illustrative list, we have to find out that how to read the 7/12 extract. How to read 7/12 extract is the basis that what we need to understand. The first point is about Gaon. That is the village name where the land is located. Now, when the word gav is being there, it indicates that it is the place of village where the land is being located. That is item number 1. Then the second is about tahsil, which talks about tahsil is nothing mere but the subdivision of a district in itself. This is the second name that comes in 7/12 extract. The third one is Bhumapan Kramanka. This is nothing mere but the survey number as provided by the revenue authorities under the state under Rule 3 of the Maharashtra Revenue Land Code. That's the precise issue which we need to understand. Now, what do you mean by this Bhumapan Kramanka will be a major issue that you will have to look into. Now, in a family, if there are some 4 or 5 children, they are being identified with the help of some name. Dilip, Sandeep, Keyur, something of that sort are the names which are being given. But in case of this particular agriculture land, instead of calling them by name, they are being recognized on the basis of number. Number is starting from 1 and ends on n number. So as a result of which now, if a family comprises of a particular land, which comprises of survey number 48, which means that 48 number belongs to A, B, C family. Now presume a case, this was belonging to the father. Father is dead, leaving behind 2 sons. Now what will happen to this 48 number? If it is a joint property, then in that case, the name will not undergo a change. But if the property is being divided into 2 parts, then this 48 number will become 48 into bracket 1 and 48 into bracket 2. 48 1 will be of son 1 and 48 2 number will be of son 2. So accordingly, 48 2 has died, leaving behind 3 sons. Then 48 2/1, 48 2/2, 48/3, as the case may be. And accordingly, this particular number goes on dividing in the times to come in itself. So this Bhumapan Kramanka will identify the exact survey number of the property in itself and ultimately who is the owner of that particular land in itself. Then Bhu Praman Kramanka Upavibhag, that some sub number is being there, which I told you 48/2, 48/3 as the case may be. Then the next comes the Hissa. Hissa is nothing mere but the ownership rights. There are 2 types of rights you might come across of. One is the joint ownership and the second is the co-ownership. Joint ownership is that where all the concerned owners are having equal interest because the property has not been divided. For example, a common landscape. One buffalo was purchased by 3 persons. Now, can the buffalo be divided into 3 parts? Answer is no. No one can say the front portion belongs to one, the middle portion belongs to between the second person, and the rear portion belongs to the third one. It is very difficult to find out that property is divisible in itself. So this property is indivisible, and hence you become the joint owner of the property. Every person is having 33 1/3% right in the entire income that might be generated from that particular property in itself. So 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 is joint ownership. But take a case that 1 kilo of pedas are being given and that has been divided into 2 parts. Now the segregation is being there. You become the co-owner in that particular matter in itself. So Hissa talks about whether you are a joint owner or whether you are a co-owner and what is the percentage of share that you are having in the land in itself. Next slide, please. Then the 6th part. Now, this 6th part is the most important part in 7/12 extract. It talks about Bhudharana Paddhati. Now, this Bhudharana Paddhati is nothing mere but it denotes the type of occupancy. Now, this type of occupancy is of 2 categories. One is class 1 category and the second is class 2 category. In case of class 1, if the land falls in the category of ancestral rights or purchase, or any other mode like gift, assignment, relinquishment, voluntarily, then in that case, it comes in category 1. And category number 2, in case of category number 1, the prior permission of the collector is not at all required. So when the property is being mortgaged, you have to ensure that this particular land falls in the category of category number 1. Category number 1 doesn't require prior permission of the collector for getting this particular property mortgage in itself. Then the second category is about please, next one, next slide, please. Occupant class number 2. These are the lands which are, there are very many categories over here, but initially now we are talking about, these are the lands given by the government to the small and marginal farmers or landless laborers or farmers. Category number 2 comes in this particular category, that lands are given by the government to the small and marginal farmers or landless laborers. Now this category also includes those lands which have been given by the government to the farmers, tenants or others who have purchased the land under the Bombay Tenancy Act 1948 and has been assigned to the government on certain terms and conditions or duration for a specific purpose as may have been decided. I invite your attention on the Bombay Tenancy Act 1948. In the year 1948, this law was being promulgated, as a result of which those persons who were the tenants in a particular land were being given right to purchase that particular land from their owners in itself. And that particular land is being considered in category number 2. Then coming to the next point, the violation of these particular terms and conditions will amount to withdrawing of land from the concerned small and marginal farmer or landless laborers, as the case may be. Now, lands of Inam category and the lands of Watan category will fall in category number 2. Now, what is this Inam land? It is an Inam land that has been given by some kings and rulers in the past in itself, and that Sardarki is being continued even as of today. For example, Sardar Shitole, Sardar Malusare, as the case may be. And this Inam land, which is being inherited by the concerned persons in itself, is not capable of being kept as a mortgage in itself. Inam land cannot be mortgaged unless collector gives permission. Watan land is also the same, which cannot be mortgaged unless permitted by the collector of the state in its collector of the district in itself. So Inam land and Watan land will fall in the category number 2, and if that is being specified that it is a Watan land or Watan land or Inam land, it will not be allowed to be mortgaged in itself. Note one point, such owners are not in a position to transfer the land by either by way of a sale, by way of an exchange, renting out, mortgage, gift, donate or lease without the prior permission of the collector in itself. So I am concentrating on category 1 and category number 2. Category 2 still continues, and that is the reason why you need to concentrate on these particular matters. Coming to point number 7, that is the Bhogavata Dara Chinna, name of the occupant, which is being called as the Kabjedar, which is known as the person who is the possessor of the land in itself. That name is required to be specified. So you come to know that who is the owner and who is actually cultivating the land. Should the loan be given to the cultivator or should the loan be given to the owner of the land in itself? That's how you have to look at the point. Then the Khate Kramanka. This is nothing mere but an account number from Khate Pustika, which is required to be maintained under the Maharashtra Land Revenue Code. And every landowner is provided with an account number, just like a passbook in itself, which states the amount of tax which is required to be paid by him, and it is updated at least within a period of 10 years of time. It can be updated earlier, but not beyond 10 years of time. So that is what the Khate Kramanka Pustika is being there, that is being given, which is useful to you to find out that whether the concerned name of the person is specified there or not in itself. Coming to the next 9 point in itself, that Kulachena, which is nothing mere but the name of the tenant and the class of contractual tenant or deemed tenant, as the case may be. Next slide, please. Then Shetache Sthanik now, that is also required to be specified in the 7/12 extract in itself. And this can be either, because there are the special names which have been specified, which is called as Walu Khan or Khacher, as the case may be. But you can have your own name in itself. For example, in Pune, Golibar Maidan is the name that has been given. So something of that sort, by virtue of which land can be recognized. If it is there, that land can be considered as the Sthanik now of the agriculture land in itself. The second point is Lagvadi Yogya Kshetra. Now, this total area which is fit for cultivation is required to be specified in 7/12 extract. and they have to specify whether this agricultural land is Jiraiti or Bagaiti or Rich Paddy, as the case may be. The area is required to be specified. If it is a modern Talati in itself, he will specify in hectares and hours. If the person is not updated, he will specify in acres or guntas. But both are being allowed under the provisions of law. Then the next is the land which is being called as PERD land, which is not being used for cultivation activity, is being called as PERD land, or the land which has not been used for cultivation. Then Pik Pani is another point that has been specified. You will find out the entire crops, those have been procured from this particular agriculture land in the last 10, 15, 20 years of time. So you can just find out whether this land is really in a cultivation position or not. Point number 14. If the name of the person goes into bracket, if the name of the owner goes into bracket, it means that either the person is not the owner of the property, or the person is no more or dead, or has disposed of the land. As a result of which, when the land is transferred, the name of the old person goes in bracket and the name of the new person comes without bracket in itself. So that is the major feature that you will have to look into so far as the use of the word brackets are concerned. All those names which are in brackets in 7/12 extract are to be considered as the persons who are no more the owner of the land in itself. In addition to that, you will find a circle just next to the number in itself, which has been specified after brackets, and some number will be specified there. That number is being called as a fair par, which details thereof can be seen in the land revenue record and against that particular number, wherein you will find that how this person has become the owner, how the land is being transferred by one person to another, and the entire history you can find out in that fair par in itself. But that is written in the circle, only number is being given. You have to make investigation thereafter and see the fair par extract in itself. So that is what the fair par is all about. In addition to that, you will find some pencil entries are also there, which will be considered as of a temporary nature, and those can be inked out later as and when the final entry or final result of that particular pencil entry will be evident in itself. Then comes a very important point which is known as POKH. POKH is nothing mere but the detailed abbreviation will be Port Kharaba. Port Kharaba is nothing mere but an uncultivable portion of land. There is no point in taking this particular land by way of a mortgage in itself, because it will be having no resale value so far as the banking authorities are being concerned. Keeping this particular point in mind, the POKH is very, very important so far as the barren land or the uncultivable land is concerned. Now, this uncultivability could be for two kinds, part A and part B. In the entire agriculture land, you will find that certain space is occupied for water storage or water stoppage or canal water route within the land, occupied by some stone quarries or some other categories, which ultimately makes the concerned land uncultivable in itself. So part A talks about that if the land has been used for definite purpose, which is not capable of being considered for cultivation in itself, then in that particular case, this will be ignored, is the major issue that what we need to understand. Then part B talks about the space occupied by roads. Some roads are going from the agriculture land, or a lake is that Shetatale which is being called, that agriculture Shetatale is being there, canal routes are being there, reservation for any other work is being there. So all these land makes this particular land uncultivable in itself. If the land is reserved for roads, for dam, etc., then that land cannot be used for and cannot be considered fit for mortgage purpose in itself. Now, just below POKH, that is Port Kharaba, you will find the word Akar. That Akar talks about the total land cess which is required to be paid to the central or state government, as the case may be. And that is how you have to look at the point that how much land cess is in arrears, how much land cess is being paid. So the right of Form 7, account number of the said land with the name of the possessor, that is Kul Vaivaddar, is being written. If it is given by way of a rent, name of the tenant Kul is also written along with the amount of rent payable by the concerned person in itself. So this is in brief that what you need to learn so far as the ownership rights of the concerned owner is being concerned. Besides that, there are certain other rights which are incorporated in 7/12 extract, which we need to see so far as in the capacity of an auditor is being concerned. It comprises of the names of persons whose interest in the said land is specified. If the bank gives loan to the concerned borrower, the interest of the bank is there in the land in itself. And as a result of which, if a loan has been raised or a charge has been created on this particular property, that must be shown to the right-hand side in other rights category so far as the matter is being concerned. So when the loan is being given, it will be your prima facie duty of the auditor to see that whether this particular charge or encumbrance has been recorded on 7/12 extract or not. And that only will give you an idea that the owner will not be in a position to sell out that particular land unless the charge or encumbrance is being discharged off. Then coming to the next point, sometimes the entire land is bought by the, just previous slide. The entire land is not being bought by the purchaser, but it purchased in fragment in itself. Now, fragment means total 1 acre of land was being there. So 1 acre comprises of 40 guntas in itself. The person has bought only 2 guntas in itself. Whether this is feasible, whether this is practicable, we will see at a later point of time. But once the sale deed has been made, then he will be buying a tukda of that land, which is called as a fragment of land in itself, for which the Fragmentation Act will apply. Next slide, please. Then if it is written in the 7/12 extract that fragmentation is not allowed, there are specific words I am talking about. Fragmentation not allowed, where tukdebandi is being not allowed. In that particular case, such land will not be allowed to be sold out or capable of being kept as a mortgage by fragmenting the land in itself, and no one can buy or no one can sell that fragmented land in itself under the Maharashtra Fragmentation Act. So keep it in mind, agriculture land cannot be divided into fragmental, and the fragmentation which is being there in that particular case, Fragmentation Act will apply, and when Fragmentation Act will apply, the property divided in fragments is not capable of being disposed of, similarly is not capable of being mortgaged, and as a result of which you have to be careful to ensure that fragmentation is not capable of being mortgaged. Coming to the next point, that if the land has been, just previous slide, yes. If the land is being acquired for roads or dams, etc., then the government takes a rehabilitation plan for the farmer in itself. That don't have your land here, we will give an alternate land to you in itself. And when this alternate land is being given, that alternate land, next slide please, alternate land cannot be kept in mortgage, which is being called as Punarvasana Sati Sampadit. So in that particular case, that land is not capable of being mortgaged is the precise point. That's what you need to understand. Then a certificate has been given under section 32M of the Maharashtra Land Revenue Code, read with Bombay Tenants in Agriculture Lands Act. Then in that particular case, unless 10 years have been passed, the land cannot be kept as a mortgage with the banking institution. Up to 10 years, it cannot be kept. After 10 years of time, it can be mortgaged in itself. Next slide. The last one, next slide. Now, if this restriction is being there, because agricultural land can be bought only by agriculturists, is the precise point that has been specified. Otherwise, if the agricultural land is bought by non-agricultural person under section 84 of the Bombay Land Tenancy and Land Revenue Act, the land will be confiscated. So as a result of which, if the permission has been granted only by collector, such type of land can be sold out by farmer to the non-farmer category in itself. So if it has been specified there that land is capable of being sold only under section 84, then in that particular case, it cannot be disposed of without prior permission of the collector in itself. So when it cannot be disposed of, similarly, it cannot be mortgaged also to the banking institution in itself. Next slide, please. Next slide. So this was about 7/12 extract and 8A extract. Now, when these agricultural lands, you have identified that this is the land which is capable of being kept in a mortgage in itself, the next question will come to you that what kind of mortgage you are thinking of, what mortgage we can talk about so far as the technicalities are concerned. Now, under Section 58A of the Transfer of Property Act 1882, the mortgage is being specified. There are three conditions which are required to be remembered. The first condition is that there is a transfer of interest. The second is the interest is being transferred in a specific immobile property, and it is being made with an intention to secure a payment which is to be made either now or in future as the case may be. So keep it in mind, three important basic issues. The transfer of interest in a specific immobile property. The second one, it is meant for payment that has been received by you to be repaid in future. And the third one is that the existing future debt is to be paid off or the future liability is to be disposed of. So these three conditions are being satisfied. You can create a mortgage on your property in itself. Next slide, please. Now there are 5-6 kinds of mortgage which you will come across of in every bank. The mortgages are different. So I'm covering up all the mortgages together in itself. Now the first mortgage is a simple mortgage. There are only three conditions required to be remembered into. That first is there is a undertaking to pay the loan. That is condition number one. The mortgagor and the mortgagee. The person who is the owner of the agriculture land, the person who is the owner of agriculture land is mortgagor. The banking institution is mortgagee. And the terms and conditions on which this mortgage takes place is a mortgage deed. So mortgage deed is the terms and conditions. Owner is the mortgagor and the banking institution is a mortgagee. So who should undertake responsibility to repay the loan? It is the mortgagor who ultimately takes the loan. So he undertakes the liability to repay the loan. Second thing is that it is for securing a loan that he has transferred to the mortgagee the right to have the specific immobile property sold in the event of having failed to repay. Now this particular contractual obligation is being there, which says that in case the concerned mortgage loan taken by the concerned mortgagor is not being paid by him on due date or on a date which is extended by the mortgagee in itself, then the right to dispose of that particular property will vest with the mortgagee in itself. So that is the second condition, where right to transfer or dispose of the property on failure of complying with the terms and condition of mortgage deed vest with the mortgagee. And the third and the last point is that possession of the property, possession of the agriculture land is not delivered to the lender in itself or to the mortgagee in itself. The three conditions are very simple. Possession is with the farmer. The right to dispose of the property is given to the mortgagee in case he fails, and there is an unconditional guarantee to repay the loan. That is what a simple mortgage is all about. Coming to the second mortgage. Mortgage by conditional sale. Now again, these are some conditions are being there that in case of default by the mortgagor in itself on a certain date, the sale shall become absolute, which means that no extension will be given, nothing of that sort. If the loan is being given on 1st of January 2020, the loan will be repaid by the person on 1st January 2030, 10 years to the duration in itself. On 1st of January, or before that, if the loan is not being repaid, in that particular case, the right to sell that particular property now will be vesting with the concerned mortgagee in itself. It's a conditional sale. That's what we need to understand. Then the payment is being defaulted. That's the major issue. But note one point, that if the payment has been made on or before due date, then the conditional sale will become void in itself, is the precise point that what we need to make it out. Note this point, that such payment is being made by the buyer shall transfer the property again to the seller. If default is being there, then the question will come over there. But note point that the amount, if it is paid by the borrower in itself, there are no rights vested with the concerned lender or mortgagee, as the case may be. This is being called as mortgage by conditional sale. Rarely you will come across of, only in Bengal and some other parts of Mizoram, etc. These conditional sales are in progress. Next slide. Third, no such mortgage. Next slide, please. It is in Bengal. Then comes the third part, which is not in operation in India, but it was prevalent during British regime in itself, and some of the foreign banks in itself, they have been using these usufructuary mortgages in itself. Now, in case of usufructuary mortgages, the possession is handed over to the mortgagee in itself. Banking institution takes the possession of the property in itself. Then the mortgagee is also entitled to get rents and profits which are generated from the land in itself. But note one point, this is the advantage of it, that there is no personal liability on the borrower in itself. In case the borrower fails to pay the amount and the land is being sold out by the mortgagee and the amount of the sale proceeds are less than the loan, then the mortgagor is not responsible to make the loss good in itself. He is not personally responsible is the major issue that what we need to learn so far as the topic is being concerned. And there is no need for foreclosure or sue for loan in itself. Immediately they can sell in the matter in itself. And that is the reason why this particular mortgage is not prevalent in India in itself. Only for a simple reason that mortgagee takes the position. Then comes the English mortgage. This is very famous and popular in some of the states in the country like Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Goa, etc. Now the major thing is that the mortgagor should bind himself to repay the mortgage loan. That is there everywhere, and that takes the responsibility. And the major part is that the moment at which mortgage is being executed, the ownership is passed from the mortgagor to the mortgagee. And in case the concerned loan is being repaid before due date, the mortgagee is under bounden duty to retransfer that particular property to the concerned mortgagor is being concerned. This is comparatively a costlier mortgage in itself because two times the stamp duty is required to be paid. Once when the mortgage is being created and the property is transferred to the mortgagee, and second time when the mortgagee again retransfer that particular property to the mortgagor is being concerned. And that is the reason why this particular mortgage is being considered as important, because the mortgagee is in a position to dispose of the property as per their own wish on the default of the mortgagor is being concerned. Next slide, please. Then comes the mortgage by deposit of title deeds. Now, this is the most famous registered mortgage deed that has been created in India in itself, because it is very cheap, only on a stamp paper worth ₹2,000. This can be executed in itself. And it was popular in England. It is popular in India as well. And under Section 58F of the Transfer of Property Act, following are the important ingredients of this mortgage. The date should be there, which has to be there, undertaking has to be there. The original title deeds, I'm using the word original. You will come across of certain deeds wherein you will find that there are certain deeds which are of, you may call it as a fake deeds are being kept over there, which will not be called as original title deeds. And I have come across of at least number of cases wherein we find that some color Xerox printouts of the original title deeds have been kept by the concerned borrower, and he has borrowed the money from several financial institutions. So you have to be a little bit careful in finding out and ascertaining whether the deeds those have been kept are original in nature or not in itself. So that is the precise issue which we need to understand so far as the deposit of title deeds is being concerned. And this is with an intention that once the original title deeds are not there, he will not be in a position to dispose of the property in itself. And that is the reason why in Pune also, I have come across a number of cases when we found out that even in case of agriculture land or houses in itself, the original title deeds were of fake nature in itself, and as a result of which created many problems in the matter in itself. So keep this particular point in mind so far as deposit of title deeds are being concerned. Next slide, please. Next slide. Anonymous mortgage, which is the last kind of mortgage which we need to see. And this last mortgage is nothing mere but the anonymous mortgage in itself. This mortgage is neither a simple mortgage nor a conditional mortgage, conditional sale mortgage, or usufructuary mortgage, or English mortgage, or mortgage by deposit of title deed. It is none of the five above which we have seen. And then if it is not within these five categories, the sixth category will be there, which is called as anonymous mortgage. This is residuary category, which we need to look into, because it cannot be fitted into the first category. Transfer of Property Act says that all right, even though these conditions are not being satisfied, still it will be a mortgage in itself, and this will be recognized as an anonymous mortgage in itself. Next slide. Section 96 of the Transfer of Property Act places mortgage by deposit of title deeds on the same footing as that of a simple mortgage, which means that it is an equivalence that has been given. In simple mortgage, you have to keep the entire data and mortgage is required to be created, which is required to be registered. But here, even though it is a deposit of title deeds in itself, still it will be equivalent to that of a simple mortgage in itself. As such, the security can, like a simple mortgage, can be enforced by suit or for sale of a mortgage property, and of course by process of law. So you have to go to the courts of law whenever the default is there in case of the mortgage that has been executed by deposit of title deeds in itself. And that is the major issue that what we need to make it out. Next slide, please. Now there are certain limitations. What are those limitations? The mortgage is capable of being enforced up to a period of 12 months, or up to a period of 12 years, not months, 12 years. So mortgage is valid for 12 years. Now, does that mean that only on the basis of mortgage deed you can execute the mortgage in itself? Answer is no. Original documents have got to be in time in tune with the law of limitation, as a result of which the money which has been given on a particular day and all those acknowledgement of debts for a period of 12 years has to be there in itself. But keep it in mind that as like what we extend the period of limitation by 3 years by getting an acknowledgement of debt, similar thing is not possible, is not capable of being done for the case of mortgage is concerned. I have seen a number of branch managers saying that the mortgage has been renewed by acknowledgement of debt in itself. That is not permitted. A mortgage deed is only once in a lifetime for that particular mortgage deed is being concerned. So keep this particular point in mind. So far as the mortgages are concerned, for common banking system in itself, other than land development and land mortgage banks in itself, the period of limitation is 12 years. For common document, it is 3 years. Then the mortgage of land mortgage and development banks are enforceable because these are belonging to the either state or central government in itself, as a result of which the duration that has been specified for enforceability is 30 years of time in itself. Then coming to the third point, that is about adverse possession, that even though you are not the owner of the property or agricultural land, but you are cultivating that particular land without any interruption or any hindrance from any Tom, Dick and Harry or the original owner, you become the owner of the property after 12 years of time. And if you are owning the property or using the property of the central or state government for a continuous period of 30 years without any hindrance or obstruction, then you become the owner of that particular property after 30 years of time. Till that 12 and 30 years of time, the adverse possession agricultural lands are not capable of being mortgaged. Beyond that, only you can mortgage the properties in itself. Then last point about this limitation, surface law is not applicable to the farmers and agricultural land, as a result of which quick disposal will not be possible under surface law in itself, is the precise point that one needs to note about. Next slide, please. Now coming to the interest subvention in this particular category. Now interest subvention and interest subsidy, these are the 2 points which we need to understand so far as the topic is of the agricultural land is being concerned. It applies to micro and medium and small enterprises also, but about that we will see at a later time. At present, I am concentrating only on agricultural advances, and that is the reason why this interest subvention scheme just I am highlighting about. Now, note one point, uniform point you need to understand. that the short-term credit has to be given at a 7%. The maximum loan which qualifies for interest subvention is 3 lakhs of rupees. And the maximum rate that is being available is 2%, is the general thing. That's what you need to understand. This scheme was introduced in the year 2006-07 and is being continued even as of today. The present situation which we talk about is about the crop loans in itself, and the crop loan interest subvention is available only for a maximum period of 1 year of that particular crop. So keep this particular point in mind. Maximum rate 7%, maximum loan 3 lakhs of rupees, interest subvention 2%, maximum amount allowed duration is 1 year. It is available for crop loans only. That is what the first part which we need to learn. Next slide. Then interest subvention is being allowed or offered by 2 institutions. One is by the NABARD and the second is by RBI. The rate of subvention is 2% uniform till 2019-20, except financial year 10-11, wherein it was reduced to 1.5%. So right from 2006-07 till today, you can say that the rate of subvention is 2%, except the financial year 2010 and 11, where it was 1.5%. We need not talk about 1.5% because it's a history in itself, never can be talked about and will be useful for all of us to look into. Only academic interest, just I'm bringing it to your notice. Then what is the difference in between the word subsidy and subvention? Now, if you go to the dictionary meaning of the word subsidy, you will find that subsidy is an English word, whereas subvention is a Latin phrase or a Latin language, which ultimately has been percolated through French and Spanish language, which means that crossed over and ultimately came back to the English language in itself. So technically speaking, subsidy and subvention, there is a very, you may call it as a hairline difference in between these two, and technically they are to be called having the synonymous meaning in itself. Next slide, please. Subvention refers to the grant of money. Where what is being called as grant? That the moment at which you accept that this is the thing that you are going to get, it will become your profit, and that grant is required to be used for the purpose for which the grant has been sanctioned in itself. So it is nothing more but a grant in aid. It is to support the concerned activity in itself. This grant has been given. That is what the word subvention is all about. But the subsidy is nothing more but it's a transfer of money from the government. So it comes, subsidy always comes from the government in itself. It doesn't come from RBI or it doesn't come from the NABARD in itself. It comes from government in itself, and that is the reason why subsidy is having more importance than the word subvention is being concerned. Subvention scheme is a little bit different from subsidy and does not offer anything in free. Subsidy is not that like that. The subsidy can be for growing up certain things, whether you really grow up or not. That is another issue, whether you have a desired results or not. That is not important. It is given for free. But subvention is not like that. You have to perform and then only subvention is being granted. In case of a subsidy, the government gives grants in order to boost production and consumption and pays a part of the cost of production of any goods or services or crops as the case may be. Meanwhile, in subvention scheme, the government offers relief in the loan burden of the borrower. So angles are different. One is given to boost the activity, whereas the other is given relief to reduce the loan activity or loan burden in itself. Next line, please. Now, this is the relief to the farmers in itself, which I had just mentioned about, because it is because of the natural calamities. Sometimes drought is there, sometimes barrenness is being there, sometimes sunny days are there, then locust is there, or many other things are being there, as a result of which it becomes very difficult to pay the entire amount of interest in itself. So in that case, interest subvention is being given. Now, what the technical meaning of the word subvention is being there? You have to repay the entire amount on the due dates in itself. That is what the original meaning that talks about. But now the NABARD has come to the rescue of the farmers in itself, and in the year, the entire loan and the interest is being paid as of 31st of March in itself. then the subvention can be granted, is the circular that ultimately speaks about. Now note one point, that in case of restructured loans also, subvention can be given in the second year also. That is what the circular that talks about, overruling the earlier circular that the relief will be there only for a period of 1 year. Next slide, please. Now this interest subvention, again the same rules are being there, which are applicable for the small and marginal farmers or any other subvention scheme against negotiable warehouse receipts in itself, where the crop has been stored in itself. The same principle, the same rule applies, and the loan is being granted, even subvention is being granted on the Kisan credit card as well. So in case of Kisan credit card, it is being allowed even beyond 6 months of time as well, even though the loan has been not punctually repaid in the matter in itself. Next slide, please. Then other categories are also been specified, where the interest subvention is available for the working capital to the animal husbandry and fisheries, which are not a direct farming but allied activities to the agriculture sector is concerned. Again, remember the same point, there are two aspects which are to be covered. One is the interest subvention of 2% to the banks. These are not allowed now to the farmers in itself. And there are 3% to the farmers for prompt repayment as an incentive in itself. Again, the amount is here 2 lakhs, maximum interest rate 7%. Again, year is 1 year in itself. So here banks get 2%, the farmer gets 3%. Ultimately, farmer gets 5% in nature in itself. Next slide, please. Then, in case of farmers possessing KCC, the limit is being enhanced to, instead of 2 lakhs to 3 lakhs in itself. And prompt repayment activity, if it is going on, they get 3% credit in itself. And this activity is on since 2009-10. Next slide. Now note one, this is the new point that has emerged over here in itself, that because of this corona pandemic in itself, the government of India is short of funds in itself. As we all know that currency notes are being printed, and most of the time the entire amount which has been generated by the central government is either spent by giving some sort of a relief to the farmers or to the money lenders, or waiving the interest loans to the farmers, etc., etc. As a result of which now the government of India has withdrawn the interest subvention scheme other than Kisan credit card account. So point to be remembered here would be, the circular says, after 1/4/2020, no interest subvention will be allowed to any farmer or any other micro, small, medium enterprises or persons who are eligible to receive interest subvention. That is 2%, 7% interest, then 3 lakhs worth of rupees loan, etc. After 1/4/2020. So this rule, only one exception is there, and that exception says Kisan credit card loan. Kisan credit card loan will enjoy the 2% interest subvention even during the current year 2021 is being concerned. Then representations were being made by the various bankers as well as various borrowers in itself because of the corona pandemic in itself. And then the government came with a circular in itself stipulating that due to lockdown to combat the coronavirus in itself, pandemic, the government decided to continue the facility of interest subvention of 2% and prompt repayment of 3% to the farmers till August 31, 2020, which means that all the points which earlier were discussed about these have been withdrawn. At least in case of farmers, they have been relaxed in itself, and as a result of which, the interest subvention will be available from 1st of April 2020 to 31st August 2020 to the farmer, and thereafter only on Kisan credit cards schemes in itself. Next slide, please. Now coming to the provisioning norms. Now provisioning norms, which you are aware about the agriculture aspect that we will see at a later point of time. But now these are the priority sector provisioning norms I am just pinpointing in itself. there are four kinds of asset that you come across of. One is the standard asset. The second is substandard asset. The third is doubtful asset. And the fourth is loss asset. Now, in case of standard asset, there are 3-4 points which are required to be remembered into. That in case of farm credit to agricultural activities, small and micro-price enterprises, the provision to be made will be 0.25% to the concerned person in itself, which means that if agricultural activity farm credit is there, the provision that will be required to be made is 0.25%. If the advances pertain to the commercial real estate, the provision percentage will be 1%. This is on standard assets I am talking about. Then advances to commercial real estate, residential housing sector, the percentage of provision will be 0.75%. And housing loan extended at teaser rates and restricted to advances as indicated in the list, it will be 0.4% so far as the things are being concerned. So in short, there are three categories which have been specified. One is 0.25%, second is 0.75%, the third is 1%, and for residual category, all will be covered at 0.4% in itself. Whether they are secured or unsecured, the 0.4% last amount is required to be provided on the balance outstanding as of 31st of March 2021 is being concerned. So keep this particular point in mind. Whether the amount is good, bad, that we have nothing to see about that. Only standard assets, the provisioning norms I am talking about. Next slide, please. Coming to the second point, that is about substandard assets. Now, in case of substandard assets, a general provision of 15% is required to be made. That is on the total outstanding and any allowance that has been made for ECGC cover, etc., that is available. Then the unsecured exposures are required to be covered, and additional 10% is required to be provided for the substandard asset, which means that you have to provide 25% on unsecured loans and 15% on the secured portion in itself. Keep this point in mind. In case of substandard asset, on secured portion, you have to provide 15%, and on unsecured portion, you have to provide 25% in itself. Next slide. The third comes doubtful, wherein there are three doubtful cases. That is called as doubtful 1, doubtful 2, and doubtful 3. Now here, normally, if substandard asset is being there, I have not specified you about when the account is being called as substandard in itself. When the account becomes out of order after 90 days of time, then that substandard asset is being converted into substandard asset. That substandard asset remains as substandard for a period of 1 year. And after that 1 year, the account will be transferred to the doubtful asset. The doubtful asset will remain in doubtful for 1 year of time, for which the provision which is required to be made is 25% of the secured portion and 100% of the unsecured portion. Then from 1 to 3 years, which is called as doubtful 2, the provision which is required to be made is 40% on secured portion and 100% on unsecured portion. Then after 3 years of time, the doubtful account 2 will become doubtful 3, and here you have to provide 100% of the secured and unsecured portion in itself. So that is what the doubtful norms which are required to be specified. Next line, please. Then comes the loss asset. The loss asset should be written off. If loss assets are permitted to remain in the books of account for any reason, 100% of the outstanding is required to be provided for. Full 100% provision is required, irrespective of the secured portion, needs to be noted down. Provisioning stated above is a standard procedure. However, auditor can recommend any provision as he deems fit. So 90 days is a standard. 90 to 1 year, after that 1 year, the account becomes substandard asset in itself. But if the concerned auditor wants, no, this is not substandard but doubtful 1, then that asset or account can jump from 90 days period to the doubtful 1 or doubtful 2 as the case may be, depending on, but it's a standard procedure normally to be followed. Then auditor will have to give his reasons as to why he feels that the account is to be categorized as doubtful asset in itself. So that is how we have to learn so far as the matter is concerned. Then out of order status is required to be seen. Then the out of order is the state account where the balance remains continuously in excess of sanction limit or drawing power. How drawing power is being found out? That the amount of loan that has been sanctioned, less 25% or 30% margin, less sundry creditors, whatever remainder amount is being there, which will be called as drawing power. And if the balance is outstanding, which is in excess of sanction limit or drawing power for all the 90 days in the past, the account will be called as out of order account in itself. So that's the precise issue which we need to learn. Yes, the second event can be that there are no credits to the account in the 90 days. That account also will be called as out of order account in itself. Then the overdue account. Any amount due to the bank under any credit facility is due if it is not paid on the due date fixed by the bank. So if the amount is required to be repaid by the concerned person in 10 installments, in that particular case, first installment was due on 1st of June, second on 1st of July, and so on. The person has not paid the first installment on 1st June, then the law will say that the overdue amount will be the installment that has not been paid on 1st of June in itself. So overdue amount will go on differing the moment that the person will be not repaying the amount in itself. So day on which it has not been paid, that will be the major issue that we will have to look into. Now this year, there are certain changes which have been made in LFAR, and LFAR is nothing mere but long form audit report in itself. Now certain things are being thrusted upon the auditors in itself, and they are expected to carry out certain investigative type of audit in bigger, larger accounts in itself. It has been pinpointed in long form audit report in itself that the concerned auditor is expected to verify and scrutinize thoroughly all the accounts where the balance outstanding in each and every account exceeds 10% of the total outstanding of the branch in itself, or any account in excess of 10 crore rupees in itself. So as a result of which, summarily I can say that all accounts above 10 crore rupees are now required to be listed out, and entire thing that has been pointed out in the long form audit report is required to be gathered by you and is required to be reported by you in itself. That is what the technical feature now we will have to look into. In addition to that, there is one more rider also, that if the loans given by the concerned branch is only 80 crore, then 10 crore is not the limit, 10% of 80 crore. So all those loans which are above 8 crore rupees now will be required to be listed out, and those are required to be reported separately by separate commenting on each and every report is being concerned. Now this LFAR also talks about certain matters. They are expecting us to have the judgmental aspect, which ultimately can be smelled out from the wording that has been used in the LFAR in itself. Now we are familiar with the correct report, the true and correct report, the true and fair report. IFRS says only the fair report in itself. I can give you a small illustration. Go to the Mahabharata in itself. Ashwathama is dead. Is it a correct statement? Answer is yes. Ashwathama is dead is a correct statement. But is it true and correct? Then the answer will be no. The true and correct can be Ashwathama named animal is dead. Now, is it again a true and correct? The answer will be yes. Ashwathama named animal, because human being is also an animal. Narova, Kunjorova, that is not an issue in itself. Human being is an animal in itself. So wording is not clear. It can be considered as true and correct. But is it true and fair? The answer is no. The answer will be Ashwathama named elephant is dead. Is it true and fair? Answer is yes. But is it fair as per IFRS? Answer is no. What is the correct answer then? Ashwathama named elephant is dead, and no human being of that name is dead. So that is what the judgmental nature which we need to understand. That is what the LFAR is being expecting from us. We have to give judgment, which means either this side or the other side. You cannot be hanging in between these two, simply saying that it appears, it looks like. Those words are not being expected now. That is what the policy formulation that can be gathered from the wordings of the LFAR are being concerned. So LFAR, once the report is being specified or certain qualifications have been laid down in LFAR, the question will come, your report is not different or your report is different from LFAR. Your final reporting is to be made by the report in itself. So you need to qualify that any item that has been specified in LFAR also must become part and parcel of the final report by giving the note number in LFAR is being concerned. So you need to consider now this particular angle because judgmental nature is being expected from the statutory auditor in this LFAR is being concerned. In the light of that now, we need to look into the matter and find out that whether this is feasible, right, wrong, as the case may be. Whether your judgment is right or wrong, that is another issue that we'll have to look into. But ultimately, the judgment is required to be given, for which appeals will be there in future in itself. And that is how we have to look at the LFAR's present day situation is being concerned. We will talk about this major thing at a later point of time, soon should the time is available to us in itself. Next slide, please. Now, any of the comments made by the auditors is there in LFAR is adverse. Auditor has to consider whether a qualification in the main report is necessary. The format of the LFAR speaks about policies of the bank are in conformity with the RBI master direction, which means that the RBI has specified that 40% should be the priority sector lending. So in that particular case, you need to adhere to as to whether the non-priority sector advances, whether they have been incorporated in priority sector advances or not. Because in most of the cases, in the most of the branches which we have audited, I have come across of a situation that all housing loans are being covered under the priority sector category in itself, where only certain category of housing loans are being considered as a priority sector advances in itself. So keep this particular point in mind whenever you are reporting in LFAR is being concerned. Next slide, please. Now, these are the limits prescribed by the micro, small and medium enterprises, wherein some advantage is being there for the chartered accountants as well. Next slide, please. Next, you are coming backward. This is right. Now, these limits are being prescribed by the MSME Act 2006 in itself, and it has come into force from 1st of July 2020. Now, what are the changes which have been made? Under the earlier law or under the earlier definition, the micro, small and medium enterprises were being recognized on the basis of investment made by them in plant and machinery. Now, in addition to that, a new addition has been made and turnover link is also been added to the definition of the term micro, small and medium enterprises are concerned. Now, banks loan up to 5 crore per unit to micro, small enterprises up to 10 crore. No, I'm sorry, 5 crore for micro and small enterprises and 10 crore for medium enterprises are being considered as a priority sector loans in itself. Next line, please. Next slide, please. Now, the definition, as I have already highlighted, definition has come into force from 1st of July 2020, which is the latest definition that has come. And the definition is being linked with the investment in plant and machinery and the turnover category. The difference in between the manufacturing industry and service industry has been done away with, and definition is applicable to all. The definition has been specified in section 7.1 of the Medium, Micro, Small Enterprises Act is concerned. Now, earlier slide, please. Earlier. The micro enterprise definition has been specified. Micro word talks about if the investment is up to 1 crore and the turnover is up to 5 crore rupees in itself, then that will be considered as a micro enterprise. If the turnover is about, if the investment in plant and machinery is 10 crores and the turnover is up to 50 crore rupees in itself, it will be considered as a small enterprise. And when the second slide, please. Next slide. And the last slide is medium enterprise. When the investment in plant and machinery is 50 crore and the turnover is up to 250 crores in itself, the enterprise will be considered as a medium enterprise. Now, I have to invite your attention on this definition in itself now, which has come into force from 1st of July 2020, which is useful for our chartered accountant fraternity as well. In the said act, it has been pointed out that all the work pertaining to the central government, state government, local authorities, public sector undertakings, government companies or semi-government companies. 25% of such work, which otherwise was being allowed to the all big size companies and big size chartered accountant firms, now will be allocated 25% to the medium, micro and small enterprises. As a result of which, this is not, I'm alienating any person, but the major work of the central government and state government so far as the accounting and auditing matters are being concerned was being handed over to the big four. Now, 25% of that work which is being assigned to the big four will come to the micro, small and medium enterprises because of the change that has been made in the law in itself. Only the prerequisite that we need to follow is that we need to get ourselves registered under the MSME Act in itself. So once that Udyog Aadhaar is with you in itself, you are eligible for getting this particular work in itself, which could be assigned by the government to the micro and small industries are being concerned. So keeping this particular point in mind, the new definition point in mind in itself, it is very useful for all of us to make that particular thing together. And almost all chartered accountants will come under the micro category because investment in plant and machinery is up to 5 crores, up to 10 crores in itself, and turnover is less than 5 crore. 1 crore investment in plant and machinery, and 5 crore is the turnover in itself. So we are service oriented categories in itself. Our computer investment will be less than 1 crore and our turnover also will be less than 5 crore rupees in itself. So keep this particular point in mind so far as the micro, small and medium enterprises are concerned. Next line please. Now certain notes are required to be remembered because you might be knowing that Bajaj Auto has ultimately having outsourced everything in itself. Everything is being manufactured by small, micro and medium-sized industries. So their investment in plant and machinery is very less. But their turnover is more than 250 crore. And that is the reason why this turnover limit has been kept. Otherwise, Bajaj Group perhaps would have been in the medium-sized group of industries in itself. Now keep this particular point in mind that investment in plant and machinery crosses the limit like 1 crore, 5 crore or similar amount in itself. Then in that particular case, in the same year, when it exceeds the limit or turnover as the case may be, then it will be put, that industry will be put in the higher category in itself, but not the vice versa, which means that the turnover was 6 crore, now it has come to 4 crore. The medium, the small enterprise will not become micro. It will remain in small is the major issue that we need to understand. Then the second important point, one PAN, one turnover, which means that if a concern or organization is having multiple activities in itself, for example, spinning, weaving, ginning, pressing factory, something of that sort, multiple activities are going on. In that particular case, the turnover of each department will be different, but you will have to club all the turnover together because one PAN, one turnover will be the answer in itself, and all the units will have to be clubbed together to find out the upper limit of the turnover is being concerned. Then the investment in the enterprise will be linked with the figure appearing in the last year's income tax return. And if the concerned person is new entrant and no ITR has been filed, then in that case, the value will be finalized on the basis of self-declaration, but without GST registration. Then plant and machinery will include the all tangible assets except land, building, furniture, and fitting. So keep this particular point in mind. Plant and machinery will not include the other assets, will include all tangible assets, but will not include the land, building, furniture, and fittings are concerned. Next slide, please. Next slide. Now, this is again the same part, the circular numbers I have given to all of you, that where the loans are restructured, they are not to be called as non-performing assets, provided they fall in the category of micro, small, or medium enterprises are concerned. Next slide, please. Then the other finances to the MSMEs in itself, in case of startups, loan up to 50 crores as per the definition of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Government of India, to confirm the definition of the MSME is being concerned. So loan up to 50 crore for the startups will be allowed as a priority sector advance in itself. That will be allowed is the major issue that what we need to run. Next slide, please. Loans given to artisan, village, khadi, gramok industries also will fall under this category. Next slide. Next slide, please. Then this is a list of all the categories in itself because time is running up, so I have to cover other points also. We'll skip this particular aspect. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Then coming to the next category, that is export credit in itself. Now the upper limit of 2% has been kept on this export credit in itself. This export credit can be of two categories, which will fall under the category of export in itself, which is pre-shipment credit and post-shipment credit. Pre-shipment is given in the form of Indian rupees for getting the goods exported to the third country in itself. And post-shipment credit is that once the goods are exported, in order to get money for the future export in itself, the post-shipment in the form of bills receivable being discounted are being given. So these type of two categories of pre and post-shipment are being allowed. Keep this particular point in mind that pre-shipment will be allowed only in case of Indian currency. The foreign currency must be the sale proceeds which needs to be credited. If Indian rupees have been credited, then the commercial rate of interest is applied. But note one point, in case of deemed export, Indian rupees, if they have been credited through cash credit account, those are being permitted. So these are the exceptional things that we need to look into so far as the technicalities are concerned. Next slide, please. Next. Next slide. Coming to the education part. Now, in case of education, earlier slide, please. Coming to the education slide, the classification was being made that if you are undertaking education for which you are raising a loan, and if the loan is raised for undertaking some education outside the country, and some loan is being taken for studying inside the India, these loans were being segregated. Earlier, there was no sub-classification in between these two. In the current year, the loan taken for studies being taken in India or outside India has been done away with, and as a result of which, loan up to 20 lakhs of rupees will be considered as a loan given for education and will be considered as a priority sector loan. Next slide, please. Next is the housing. Now, in case of housing, there are only two categories of loans which are required to be covered. One is for construction, reconstruction, repairs, other things so far as the acquisition and reconstruction are concerned. So in this particular category, the expenditure which is required to be incurred in the metropolitan areas for which loan is being raised should not exceed 35 lakhs of rupees. And for other than metropolitan cities, the amount is 25 lakhs of rupees. The value of the house property should not exceed in the metropolitan cities 45 lakhs, and in case of the rural areas other than metropolitan, it should not exceed 30 lakhs of rupees. For repairs, the maximum loan can be granted is 10 lakhs, and for other than metropolitan, it is 6 lakhs. So why I have been giving this particular amount in itself is for a specific reason that only these loans will be categorized as priority sector loans in itself. And keep this particular point in mind, even though the loans amounts are lesser than that, but those have been given to their own employees of the bank in itself, these will not be covered under the category of priority sector in itself. Then the bank loans to any governmental agency for construction of dwelling units or slum clearing, rehabilitation of slum dwellers subject to dwelling units with carpet area for not more than 60 square meter will fall in this particular category. And for affordable housing projects, using at least 50% of the FSI and dwelling units carpet area not more than 60 square meters will fall in this particular category. So these are the standardized loans which we need to consider. But I have come across a number of instances wherein I have seen that all housing loans are being covered under this particular category. Now, note one point that the name of the female is required to be specified if the house is to be purchased by economically weaker section or low income group category. The first two categories, woman ownership is a mandatory requirement. And when you come across of a mortgage deed, you need to verify that whether this woman's ownership is specified or not in itself. So that is the precise issue that we need to make it out. Otherwise, if the name of the female is not there, mortgage will not be allowed to be exercised in itself. And that is the prima facie condition which we need to learn. The minimum loan that is required to be raised is 6 lakhs of rupees in the first two categories in itself. Next slide, please.
पहले तो कोई पेशेंट नहीं है। हाँ हाँ नहीं, अभी तो डेंटिस्ट का आया, लेकिन ऑफिस गया था ना आज।
The rate of interest that has been specified is 9% in all cases for considering the subsidy in the matter in itself. Next slide, please. The maximum amount of subsidy that is available is 2.20 crore and the maximum is 2.67 crore. 2.20 and 2.6 crore. Then I have to invite your attention on the next slide, please. I have to invite your attention on Central Registry of Mortgage Houses in itself. This is the new plan that was being devised by the NABARD and CIBIL on the recommendation of the National Housing Bank in itself. Now, under the Central Registry, nearly 16 lakh houses are being registered. So, in case any person wishes to borrow a loan for construction of a loan or buying a flat or a house already constructed, then you have to ensure that whether an inquiry has been made with the Central Registry of Mortgage Houses or not. If that inquiry is not on the record, you have to keep a qualification that whether the loan has been raised from another financial institution, etc., could not be ascertained as the inquiry has not been made. Now, these mortgages are valid again, as I have already pointed out, for a period of 12 years of time. AOD after every 3 years of time will be required. Now, frauds I have already listed out. I have seen number of cases wherein color xerox were being kept and frauds have been committed, but those have been unearthed because of the Central Registry of Mortgage Houses in itself. I have seen at least in 4 or 5 banks in itself that multiple finance was being availed by the concerned borrower or the same house in itself. Always keep it in mind that if the house is located in a cooperative housing society, whether the charge has been recorded with the concerned society or not, and whether proper disbursement of subsidy is being made or not, or whether the use of the subsidy is proper or not in itself. Next slide, please. Then the next aspect is social infrastructure. A loan given to social infrastructure also will qualify for a priority sector lending up to a limit of rupees 5 crore. What are those aspects? Setting up a school up to 5 crore is a priority sector advance. Drinking water facilities will come under this particular priority sector loan in itself. Next slide, please. Then sanitation facilities, including construction, refurbishment of household toilets and water improvements at household level, are to be considered as priority sector loans in itself. And the recent addition that has been made, that is about building a healthcare center in Tier 1 and Tier 2 category, Tier 6 categories in itself, up to rupees 10 crore in a Ayushman Bharat scheme in itself, will be covered under the category of priority sector advances in itself. Next slide, please. Then this renewable energy, another important point that we need to learn: solar-based power generators, biomass-based power generators, windmills, micro-hydel plants, and for non-conventional energy based on public utilities, that is street lighting systems and remote village electrification, etc. So all these will be covered under the renewable energy priority sector loan advances in itself. But these are, you will not come across of very frequently. The limit is 30 crore rupees in itself per borrower in itself. Keep this particular point in mind. Next slide. Now these are earlier slides. Now these are the loans which have been granted to the Housing Finance Corporation, approved by NHB. The interest rates are being specified by the RBI in itself. It is meant for slum clearance, some construction is being allowed. All these will fall in this particular category in itself. Next slide, please. Then these are small advances which have been given to the rural and non-rural categories in itself. In rural categories, maximum loan can be granted per borrower is 1 lakh, whereas in other non-rural categories, the more amount is being provided, 1.6 lakh. Next slide, please. The smaller one that you will come across of, these are guarantees given by the government in itself. Next slide. Next slide, please. Then coming to the weaker section, I will not spend much time on this weaker section because there are other aspects also required to be covered into. So those I will cover first, and then we will go to the next category in itself. Now, in case of term loans where the provisioning norms, just I wanted to specify that the account will become overdue after 90 days of time when the installment has not been paid or the interest has not been served in itself. Now, in case of bills purchased, the account will become overdue at the end of 90 days in itself should the amount is not being paid. In case of credit cards, the minimum amount has not been paid for a continuous period of 90 days of time. The account will become out of order, thus non-performing in itself. Then the cash credit account, we have already pointed out that excess credit or beyond the excess than the sanction limit, drawing power for a continuous period of 90 days, no credits during 90 days, or credit is not sufficient enough to cover the interest portion in itself, and similar other matters, the account will be considered as inoperative and thus will be considered as non-performing asset. One more aspect, that the account was required to be renewed but has not been renewed beyond 180 days time. Then after 180 days time, the account will become non-performing asset in itself. Now, in case of fixed deposit in itself, the advance against fixed deposit, it normally would not become non-performing asset unless the borrower is no more or would not be traced and the amount outstanding is more than the amount of fixed deposit in itself. Now, in case of the LC backed by bill discounting or the bill discounting backed by the LC in itself, even though all other loan accounts are becoming NPA, the bills do not become.
Sir, please unmute yourself.
I would like to share one small story, and I would like to share a small story, and then I will conclude within 2 minutes of time, because it was the time that I was supposed to conclude. So only 4-5 minutes are left out.
Sir,
can you hear me, Keyur?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just 2-3 minutes time.
Fine, sir.
Allow me 2-3 minutes time.
So this is the story of a hall not situated in India, but it was situated in United States of America. A gathering like all of us, but a physical gathering was present there, not like the one that virtual mode was there. And as you know, in USA, all the whitish faces are there. You won't find a black face normally. All whitish faces were being there who were attending the lecture. A lecturer was being invited to deliver a lecture for a period of 1 hour and 30 minutes. As you know, in USA, you have to pay for 1.5 hours lecture duration. So accordingly, amount was being paid by the participants. What was expected of the lecturer? To deliver a lecture within 1.5 hours time. But the lecturer continued beyond 1.5 hours. 10 minutes passed, 20 minutes passed. The lecturer continued. The whitish faces started becoming pinkish, indicating that anger was growing up. But the lecturer did not stop. He continued. Another 10 minutes passed. The pinkish faces started becoming reddish, indicating that the anger was on a boiling point. But the lecturer did not stop. He continued. Another 20 minutes passed. One person sitting on the last bench got up. He had become, his eyes had become like a potato type eyes, looking very broadly, reddish face, anger oozing out from his eyes in itself, marching towards the dais, taking a gun in hand. Lecturer saw that and looking at the participant, told him, "Don't get up, I will conclude within 2 minutes of time." Then the lecturer, the concerned participant said, "No, no, you continue, you are allowed to continue." Then the lecturer got feared up and said that, "Arey, don't come forward, you are having a gun in your hand and ultimately you are likely to kill me when I will be delivering a lecture. So you want me to deliver you want to kill me during the course of lecture so that I should never deliver a lecture in future?" Then the concerned participant said, "No, you continue your lecture. I am not going to kill you, but I am going to kill those who invited you over here in itself." So I don't want Keyur, Sandeep and other Agarwal to ultimately become the victim, though that is not technically possible. As like later bomb, you can have a bomb through the virtual mode also. So I don't want to risk the life of these very precious and valuable persons, chartered accountants, who ultimately invited me. So I don't want to be a responsibility on them, liability on them. And that is the reason why I just shared this particular small story with you in itself. So with these brief words and a small story, I thank all the organizers of Amravati, Akola and Ahmednagar branch, especially the chairman of this particular branch. I also thank the vice chairperson of the regional council in Desai for inaugurating this particular series in itself. I thank the secretaries and the entire team members of all the three branches who have been homogeneously working together, because working in a one branch is a difficult job and having a cohesion with all the three branches together is a very difficult job. But since the intelligent chairman and secretaries are there in these three branches in itself, this could be made possible in itself. So a big thank you to all the three chairmen and secretary and the team members of the three branches in itself. I owe a lot to them in itself, and I thank right from the bottom of heart in itself that a big thank you to all of you. Thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity, and thanks to the participants who heard me very patiently, despite the fact that there was some hindrance in sharing the slides in itself. Kindly forgive me if I have troubled you in these particular matters, but all of you have been proved to be a very, very learned participant. So thanks to all of you as well. Thank you to all.
Thank you, sir. Continue, Sandeep. Sandeep, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you, Dilip sir. You described the entire session very lucidly and in a very detailed manner. Matlab, that all that 712 extract, 8A extract and the details and Fairfar, Utar and all that, the particular Marathi words you used in that. And the very first time we learn all these in details, many times we see that 712, 8A, sir, आधा तो bounce जाता है, honestly बता दूं. And my one very sincere opinion, if anyone has to purchase the property, please take consultation from Dilip Bhai to ensure that all documents are very clear. So, thank you, sir. Rest to Keyur, sir, please.
We'll have this. There are some questions into the chat box. Sir, I'll have some questions. Sir, Dilip, sir?
Yeah, he is there.
Yeah. Sir, the first question is, when Supreme Court had denied further moratorium and denied interest waiver, whether non-declaration of NPA holds good?
A very good point. Very good point. Keyur, I will explain you this particular matter. It's a very good and intelligent query, I would call it. Only for a simple reason that when an interim injunction has been granted by the Supreme Court of India, it will continue to have an effect until it is vacated by the same court, that is by the Supreme Court of India. As a result of which, since the Supreme Court has not vacated that particular stay, which means that the earlier position which was there on 3rd of September will continue to remain over there. And as a result of which, we cannot declare any account as a non-performing asset. Only we can do on our own make a list of those particular accounts in our calculation and report by way of a note, not beyond that, that these are the accounts which otherwise were to be declared as NPA, but because of the Supreme Court's intervention and the injunction order that has been given, these cannot be declared as non-performing assets.
Sir, there is another.
Sir has login from 2 IDs. Can you please mute one ID as earlier you did?
Anand, I am not in a position to hear you.
सर आपका एक 2 आईडी से है तो इको आ रहा है तो एक आईडी से म्यूट कर दीजिए ना.
I will close one then. I will close one of the.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Much more better.
Continue, sir.
Sir, did it.
Yes.
Sir, the next question is, are HNT loans, that is the harvesting and transportation loans to sugar factories, considered under agri advances? And continuing to that, what are the NPA norms for these loans to sugar factories?
No, the loans given to sugar factories are indirect methods because they are not cultivating the land. They are not cultivating the activity in itself. So these are indirect loans, technically not to be called as agriculture loans, technically, because they only wanted to ensure that the loans are being granted. What they normally do, that is what I have understood in so many audits that I have conducted. Borrowers are raising the loan. The loans are not paid to the farmers. A big amount is being chunked out and shown in the books of account as it being paid to the farmer, but ultimately reaches to the sugar factory in itself. And they use that particular amount for their own purposes. And as a result of which, the major thing that normally takes place. As a result of which now, the loans and advances which are normally given to the farmer, they will be called as agricultural advances. But ultimately, the use thereof is being made by the sugar factory in itself. So if technically the loan is being given to the sugar factory, it will not form part of the agricultural advances itself, because they have to cultivate the land that they are not doing. They are not farmers in the technical sense. Either it's a cooperative society or it is a company or farmer sugarcane manufacturing company under Companies Act, where 500 farmers can be members in itself. So farm producer companies could be there. They can be considered as the farmers in itself in a technical sense. But technically speaking, loans given to the sugar factory will not qualify for the agricultural sector advances next time.
So one more query. If account was NP on 1st Jan 2020, but bank has not declared so, will it be NPA after Supreme Court's decision as it was NPA before the pandemic itself?
Very good. Again, another intelligent point that they have made it out, whosoever he has made it out. But I have told you during the course of lecture in itself that account was declared as NPA, but that was not recognized as NPA in itself because of various reasons. Branch manager has failed, he has ignored, or something has went wrong, the manager was having some problem, as a result of which the account has not been identified as NPA in itself. Now, in this case, after 31st August 2020, any account cannot be recognized as NPA in itself. So as a result of which, even though the account is technically NPA, we cannot call that particular account as an NPA. And that is the reason why I told you that two different notes are required to be made. One is the note up to 31st of August. These technically the accounts were non-performing, but not declared to be so. And after 31st of August, those accounts which have been to be called as NPA, but are not declared as such. So accordingly, the division is required to be made. And finally, the answer is required to be made it out. LFAR must comprise of this particular note, must be qualified in the main report as well, because both are having the impact on the profitability of the organization.
Yes, sir. Sir, one more last question. In case of interest subvention, is it applicable to loan given after 31st August 2020 or loan repaid after 31st August 2020?
Very good point again. It's a precise point that I need to bring it to the notice. Loans granted. In case of KCC, there is no bar on that. In case of Kisan credit card, whether it is given prior to 31st August or subsequent to 31st August, there is no change, there is no bar. you can borrow money even prior to that or subsequent to that. You are eligible to claim interest subvention of 2% any point of time. But other than KCC, the interest subvention has been barred after 1st of April 2020, which has been extended by way of a circular till 31st of August, which means that the loan has to be raised prior to 1st of April and extension being made subsequent to the date of, prior to the date of 31st August.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there any other query, members? Any other query? I feel happy to announce and say that we have our regional council member, CA Anand Bhai Jakotia, with us. He is currently the nominee for Akola branch and was last year the nominee of Amravati branch. I'll request Anand Bhai to share his views about the 3 days bank or branch audit conclave, what we 3 branches had this together. Anand Bhai.
Yeah. Thanks, dear Keur Bhai. My dear friends, very close friends, Keur Bhai, Sandeep Bhai, Sunil Bhai, all have become chairman this year. And the teams of all these 3A branches, Akola, Amravati and Ahmednagar. Friends, I being from finance field, our former chairman, Pune branch, Dilip Sadhbhai sir, knows that we are always interested in credit rating. And if I pick up all the first letters from these branches, Akola, Ahmednagar and Amravati, it is triple A. So this series was certainly a triple A category, and not just this series. Even in last year, I have seen your work in these challenging times was of triple A category, and that's the only reason you got the best branches awards. All these 3 branches got awards from WIRC in members field, in students field. The day and night work which you did in those challenging times made this success possible. As far as this series is concerned, the topics are really very apt. The faculties, best of faculties you have chosen. CA Dilip Sadhbhai sir is always the best faculty for us at Pune. And I have seen him almost in all the certificate courses. Please note it. Either he is faculty or he is a participant. He don't miss any certificate courses. By now, he must have done 12 plus certificate courses, and he is faculty in 8 to 10 certificate courses. And he can speak on n number of topics. Even on 712 extract, he can deliver a special topic separately. And I request all these 3 branches, as these branches they belong to Mofizil area, or 712 extract काय महत्व असते ते आपल्याला सर्वांना माहित आहे. We can certainly have his session on this topic. And superb job, all these 3 branches, and special success which was received by Akola branch, getting name to a road, CA Marg. I know this is very Herculean task. Getting this success is very difficult. And this success was very well applauded and acknowledged by President, then President Atul Gupta sir, and then VP and now President CA Nihar Jamusaria sir. It's rightly said that challenges make life interesting, and overcoming those challenges make life meaningful. All these 3 branches have made this year meaningful in spite of this pandemic year. And hearty congratulations to all these 3 branches once again. Sorry we couldn't meet physically. We couldn't hand over the awards physically because of pandemic and because of last minute restrictions. I would have been very happy being office bearer for last year to hand over those awards physically, but we missed that opportunity. Let's not regret and continue this success. And these 3 branches, I have seen that they have organized the best of national conferences. And once this pandemic situation goes out, and we pray that it will happen very soon. After that, let's unite together, continue this unity of triple A category, triple A grading, and let's have another mega national conference, never before kind of it. And thanks a ton, all these 3 chairmen and 3 teams. Thanks, Sarthi sir, for your precious guidance. And as always, you added some new things to your session, and hope to hear from you again and again on this platform. We hope these branches will get your session very soon. Once again. Thank you. Over to you, Keyur bhai.
Thank you, Anand bhai. Sir, Sandeep sir, continue कर लो.
हाँ, please आप continue कर लीजिए.
Sir, now we all have the questions done, and with the formal vote of thanks for this bank branch audit conclave, I, on behalf of Akola branch of WIRC of ICAI and the entire managing committee of Akola branch, and on behalf of Amravati branch and Ahmednagar branch, would give a special vote of thanks and a thank you to all the speakers for the 3-day. Currently in the absence of CA Jayesh Kala sir, Hitesh Pomal sir, and currently we have the speaker Dilip Sadbhai sir. मैं सबको बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहूंगा. उन्होंने बहुत ही अच्छे से अपने अपने व्यूज को एक्सप्लेन किया है, अपना टाइम शेयर किया है. इवन ये हद हुई है कि मेंबर्स सभी ने कोऑपरेट किया, पूरा सेशन को सुना, और सेशन 2 घंटे का बोलने के बाद में भी 3-3.5 घंटे तक के चल रहा है, लेकिन मेनी मेंबर्स हैव जॉइंड एंड केप्ट कंटिन्यूअसली विद दिस सेशन. और दिलीप सर, ऐसा कहीं नहीं हुआ है कि किसी ने आपको बंदूक दिखाई है. तो ऑन अ लाइटर नोट वो आपने एक छोटा सा पार्ट शेयर किया, तो आपका बहुत अच्छा सेशन हुआ. एंड जो संदीप सर ने कहा, जेन्युइनली स्पीकिंग 7-12 के ऊपर इतना बारीकी से, या 8A इसके ऊपर इतना बारीकी से कभी ध्यान से गौर किया ही नहीं है. तो वो जो मुद्दे देखने को मिले, बहुत ही अच्छी चीज थी. टू नो अबाउट द डिफरेंट टाइप ऑफ लोन्स दैट वी हैड. Thank you, sir, for your knowledge sharing. Thank you for your time sharing, and to all the branches and all the members over here who have joined for this session, a very, very lot of thanks to you from the bottom of the heart to make this session successful. Thank you, Anand bhai. आपने आपका टाइम स्पेयर किया और बिजी शेड्यूल में से आप आए, आपने आपके व्यूज बताए. और पैंडेमिक आ गया, इसकी वजह से, या वापस ये जो लॉकडाउन का सिचुएशन आ गया, इसकी वजह से ये जो नहीं हो सका अवार्ड सेरेमनी, पर जरूर फिजिकली मिलेंगे सर, और जरूर आगे इवेंट जो आप कह रहे हैं वैसा कुछ कोशिश करेंगे कि ऐसा कुछ करें, तीनों ब्रांच साथ में मिलके, तो ऐसा जरूर ट्राई करेंगे. लेट्स होप दैट दिस सिचुएशन गेट्स कंक्लूडेड एट द वेरी फास्ट पार्ट. थैंक यू सर टू ऑल.
थैंक यू.
ये सर
मैं बोलना चाहूंगा दिलीप के बारे में. सर का ऐसा है कि सर या तो फैकल्टी है, यानी WIRC में सभी कोर्सेज के लिए, या तो सब कोर्स किया हुआ है. मेरे को उनके मित्र ने बताया कि सर का ये खास बात है सर की, WIRC के यानी सारे कोर्स किए या तो फैकल्टी रहेंगे सर. सर बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. आज आपने बहुत डिटेल में हमको समझाया. 7-12 में अब तो हम जैसे कि एग्री सेक्टर का जब भी ऑडिट करेंगे अभी आगे, तो पहले हम पूरा आपको देखेंगे तो पूरा याद आ जाएगा सर की क्या क्या देखनी चाहिए, क्या है. डेफिनेटली बहुत डिटेल ये सेमिनार रहा एग्री सेक्टर और प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर पे. थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू वेरी मच.
सर का नाम ही 7 भाई है, 7-12 तो उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे से लेना ही है. Thank you, sir. Thank you on behalf of all the 3 branches. Thank you so much. Thank you all the members. Thank you all the participants. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anand bhai.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you all the branches. Thank you, Anand bhai. Thank you, sir.
The permission of, can I close?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.